esteemed councillors of Whangarei District Council, thank you for allowing myself and Local Government New Zealand Chief Executive Susan Freeman-Green to answer questions today and also speak to the notice of motion that's on the table, and that is whether or not you will renew your membership for Local Government New Zealand. I recall fondly teamsing into your meeting this time last year, and the same narrative that I shared then is still the same today. Whangarei is the capital city of Northland. While the Far North did have the original capital at Okiato, I will concede that Whangarei is our capital city for our region. And your voice is so important to have at Local Government New Zealand. We lost kaipara to the rural sector when they discontinued their membership with Local Government New Zealand, but we are still represented in rural and provincial, in the rural and provincial sector, because the Far North District Council is a provincial council. Whangarei is the only metropolitan council we have in Northland, and if we were to lose you, we would lose your voice to represent all of our region when you get to sit alongside all of our biggest cities in this country. We are still represented at the regional sector through Northland Regional Council. I humbly sit before you today as your Zone 1 representative, and I'm here to speak to the benefits but also the risks should this notice of motion go ahead. First, I just wanted to touch on very quickly, Mr. Mayor, the financial implications for you. Now, I note that your Local Government New Zealand membership for this year is $87,928.50. It's not a small amount of money, but if you put it into perspective to your annual operating budget for the year 25-26, which is $211,159,000, your membership fee is only 0.0004% of your upcoming annual operating budget. The strengths and the values of what that 0.004% will achieve for you as an organisation cannot be understated. And I'd just like to acknowledge staff for preparing the report, including the paper that was prepared by Local Government New Zealand around the value of your membership. The value of your membership in dollar-terry terms far surpasses the actual fee that you pay to continue your membership. I asked my esteemed colleagues sitting around this table who will make this decision today, how many of you are members of groups, collectives or organisations personally? Why are you members of groups, organisations or collectives? It's because there is strength in numbers, there is strength in unity. That is what we have through Local Government New Zealand. Now, I know that we have had other councils leave the organisation, but we here in Northland, the tail of the fish, very far removed from the capital, we need to be a part of the collective voice of our brother and sister councils up and down the country if we want to get ahead with central government. Now, I know I'm pretty good at doing a haka, and I'm pretty good at doing a haka to the government when it's called for. But if that haka is alongside our capital city of Northland, our regional council, and countless other councils up and down the country, then that voice is stronger. Last year, I talked about your membership being like a gym membership. There are different there's different gym equipment that you can utilise. Just like within your papers, you can see the different tools that Local Government New Zealand offers you as individual elected members, but also as an organisation. How much value you get out of it is what you choose to use in that gym in Local Government New Zealand. So I hope that I have endeared you today as your Zone 1 representative. I actually haven't had any of you personally reach out to me for this vote, but as I said last year, I'm always here to represent you alongside Mayor Kokorulu, and we are both very fortunate to sit on National Council to represent Northland through the strategic national direction for local government. My final prop is this. This is the agenda of our National Council meeting that we sat in yesterday. Strategy, policy, and action for us as a sector. If you are not a part of that table, then you will not be privy to this or to help steer what it looks like. I'll just pass over to our Chief Executive if she needs to fill in any of the gaps. Otherwise, I thank you for your time today. Kia ora.
Kia ora. It's great to be here. Thank you very much for having us. I don't want to add much to what Mayor Moko said, but I do really appreciate being here. I'm really happy to answer questions on the dollars and cents, the advocacy wins, the range of work that we do on your behalf. We have a really committed team that thinks about what is best for local government all the time. So happy to answer questions.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Cool. Councillors, as you will see by the agenda item there, you'll see quite clearly that there is a declaration of interest that I need to call because I'm actually on that National Council. Is there any questions for the team here? No. Quick, Councillor McKenzie.
Yeah, just a question. Thank you for coming in. It's great that you've been allowed to come and speak. Just for the ratepayers of our district, could you outline what benefits they see out of the membership cost, because they are ultimately the ones paying the bill for this?
I'll probably use a personal analogy to respond to that, even though I know there's a raft of tools policy-wise for the organisation, right? But I am a better mayor for our membership of the Far North District Council with Local Government New Zealand because of the mayor school I got to attend, because of the chair training I get to have, because of the professional development, and also the key connections that you have with councils throughout the country through the Local Government New Zealand membership. If we didn't have that, I would not be as good an elected member as I am today, but I actively go out to access those tools, to use them, and I seek out that professional development. Susan and the team at LGNZ are on my speed dial. If I ever need assistance, I have that. The ratepayers of the Far North would be worse off if we did not have that membership, because my council, in all honesty, would probably be a shambles. So it is probably more personal. It's probably a little bit more qualifiable than quantifiable for a ratepayer. But I also would ask and challenge you this. This is an election year. You will not be, or may not be, sitting around this table come October. I think that it is not so much mean-spirited, but I think that it would be a huge disservice to the people of Whangarei, to your organisation, and to the newly elected council if you were not to continue your membership at a time when they are going to need help the most.
Okay.
Yes, thank you, Moko, Mayor Moko. I just want to add a couple of things on that. So if you look at page 30 of top of page 30 of your report, I want to talk about the money, actually, that you will save in terms of saving ratepayers and money you might have to spend if you don't belong to LGNZ. So at the top of page 30, it says that your staff have put forward a figure of $65,000 to do minimal training that's not customised to local government, and to have 4 visits to Wellington.
Susan, could you use the microphone? Just to make sure it's...
Oh, sorry, and to have 4 visits to Wellington. So that's $65,000, which is nearly the full cost of a membership. What I would say that's not included in that is the fact that it doesn't include the submissions that you can access and use. It's the access to ministers through our networks. It doesn't include the communications and the toolkits we provide to help you do your work that you would have to hire lawyers or consultants or others to pay for. It doesn't include the templates and the guides we provide you. It doesn't include the research we've done, the toolkits around, what drives rates that you are able to use in your LTP consultation document last year. Doesn't include the electoral reform work to enable easier access for people to participate and vote in local elections. So there's a huge amount that we do that actually has dollar value attached to it. And our value of local government NZ piece, which you have incorporated in your papers, lists how much each of these individual things would cost. You don't have to pay for consultants, lawyers, others to pay for those. You can just come to us. You can get whatever you need from us that supports you in terms of the way you work. So, thank you.
Councillor Peters.
Thank you both for your presentation. As people know, I'm very much in favour of decision-making close to home. How will LGNZ support us to push decisions more in the local arena rather than in central government?
I think this plays directly into one of the key forms of advocacy that Local Government New Zealand pushes, and that's around localism. Every single piece of work that comes from Local Government New Zealand stems from that localism piece and ensuring that we have decision making at a community level, at a local level. And so if you look across the strategy, the policies and the push that Local Government New Zealand supports councils with, you'll see that as a key theme that comes through. On a more day-to-day level though, we know that through Local Government New Zealand we have our zone meetings to bring us together, but also the opportunity for us at Northern to push remits across. I have a remit coming up, just going to use this opportunity very quickly. It's around security system payouts to elected members to keep us safe. But that's a huge opportunity. I look at when Kaipara District Council formally pushed across the better controls for councils for vape shops, right? We pushed that as a region. It made it across the table as a remit, and we got it into the legislation. It was unfortunate that the new government removed that provision from the legislation, but that's the power we have through Local Government New Zealand to push our local direction with the backing of all of our councils around the country.
Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Cooper.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you, Mayor Moko, and thank you, Susan, for coming up. I am just a humble ward councillor who serves the Bream Bay ward, but I hear two things that you've said. First thing is that that the support of localism and the strength of unity down in Wellington, and it's a little bit not counterintuitive, I suppose, but we give our voice to a collective body in Wellington so that we get a bigger voice back in our region, and I think I support that, and I'm very I think that's incredibly important. But I wonder if you could humour me with a bit of a situation, because if I put a situation to you, and let's have a hypothetical situation, because we're not allowed to use personal people, Your Worship. But if there was potentially as a mayor of a region there was some natural disaster in their region or some happening in their region, and they wanted to go down to Wellington and get access to the people that were making the decisions that were going to affect their region, and if they didn't know those people personally, am I right in saying that you guys will facilitate that direct access to the people who are going to help a region in a time of need? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, we have access to politicians, officials, and we can facilitate that. That is something that we do on a daily basis.
Can I use a very real example of where this has benefited the Whanau District Council? And I don't know what your numbers are, but for us through Cyclone Gabrielle, we received $150,000 from central government. We received $350,000 from our member councils who adopted us and fundraised that money to send it up here. You were also adopted, I don't know by whom, so was Kaipara, but that's a dollar-terry figure that if you just put that across your membership, it's already paid it out.
Okay. So,
That's, Mayor Moko's talking about the Adopt a Community campaign after the natural disasters.
good as gold. I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Councillor Holmes.
Your Worship, thank you. Welcome to both of you. Again, thank you for being here. I would like to think that you always feel welcome to being in this chamber, so great to see you. So I've got a question which follows on. I mean, I'm also a humble ward councillor, although, you know, not nearly as humble as Councillor Cooper, but I try. And so again, just look at page 30 on the papers that we've been given here. We talk about the pros and cons of this, and one of the pros that's been outlined in the paper is having a voice at the table with other local government entities to ensure that the issues for our region are being heard at central government level. So this is probably a question perhaps more for Susan, but could you elaborate on what that actually looks like? I mean, Mayor Moko, you've just given a very good example following the cyclone, but on a more mundane, day-to-day, business-as-usual level, what does that mean?
That could be a range of things. It could be a metro voice, so being part of the metro region, talking about the importance of cities and how growth is different and needs to be dealt with differently in a metro area as opposed to a rural area. It could mean inviting your mayor to speak to the media, which we did last year on a particular topic, to get actually the issues in Whangarei out in the public domain. It could mean talking to other councils who are having the same issues and forming some kind of collective position or view on a particular issue. It could mean incorporating the views into the submissions we do lots of to central government. So there are lots of ways that we use what we learn from you in the regions and in the cities into the way we work. And we miss that view when it's not in the mix.
And a follow-up question, if I may, just to clarify. And what you're saying is that for that level of service, that for the current year, 25-26, that costs us just shy of 90,000 plus GST. So that's equivalent, I guess, of about a full-time member of staff. Would you agree?
That's probably right, but yeah. But if you have a look at the way we have articulated the various different ways that we generate value, it's multifaceted and a lot of dollars attached to that.
Yeah, and I don't think we could get that level of service for the cost of one person.
That's right, because you need to have the contacts and the networks and the ways in and the access to the reporters or the ministers or whoever it is that we do on a daily basis.
That's great, thank you.
And Councillor Harding.
E te koro matua, thank you for your opening prayer for us this morning. E te kahika moko, tēnā koe rawa ko Susan, hiana kia kaurua. I'm just kind of really appreciative of the responses to all the councillors' partai. In particular, I'm just looking at pages 35, 36 around the representatives, and so we have the metro and the regional sector representatives, but can you just, how important is it to have, like Alex Crackett, young elected members representatives and the representatives from Maruata?
Mihi ana ki a koe, kai Kaunihira Harding. National Council, and we are, to be fair, we are going through a governance review to see what does representation of a sector for an organisation like Local Government New Zealand, what should it look like? Right now we have each zone represented, we have each sector represented, but then we also have special representation for young elected members, which is a standing committee of National Council, and also for Te Maruata, which is a standing committee of National Council for Māori members in council. Now, I just reflect on the fact, one, that in the previous term as a councillor, I was the co-chair of the Young Elected Members Committee and a representative on the Te Maruata Committee. But for you yourself, or for young elected members, or for Councillor Ruka here at this table, it can be a lonely place to be on a council. And those networks give you the support and the opportunities to connect with others who share similar values or have a similar outlook, or maybe have a different outlook to you, but they bring further opportunity for you to come together. Those views are represented at the National Council level at this time as well.
And Councillor Reid.
Thank you, Your Worship. Welcome, Mayor Moko and Susan. Thank you for gracing us with your presence today. Moko, you stated earlier that the seat of power was Mokiato, but I thought it was Matihiti, where we both hail from. Thank you for your questions around why membership of groups and organisations, etc. For me, I'm quite a driven sort of a dude, and I like to do my best for anything that I put my heart or my mind to. And for me, I look and I watch who leads what. And if we're to be a membership, or a part of the membership, for me the important thing is to put political ideals aside. And the reason you're there is you're simply there to service that membership for their needs and their wants. That's my expectation of LGNZ, and I watch to see who's leaning which way and what their political bent is, to make sure that I don't see a fudging of the pathway for that group. And thank you for your participation, and I watch with interest. Thank you.
Okay. And Councillor Benny.
Thank you. I'll be really brief. So my question relates to a topic that's coming up very shortly, which is quite divisive for this council, which is fluoridation. Mayor Moko will know that I wrote to LGNZ. The first time I contacted LGNZ on fluoridation topic, they didn't respond to me. The second time, I got a response which said that as a LGNZ supported fluoridation. Now, my question is, why wasn't that put through to councils for a some sort of agreement nationwide where we could all band together and either agree or disagree on the topic? And the second one is, after I got that email, I asked particularly what support they would give to councillors and mayors who were threatened with prosecution or imprisonment because of their stance, which was trying to protect the community. LGNZ would not engage with me, did not respond to that, so the answer was none. So I put that question.
Understand that question, okay?
I think so, and you can correct me if I have that wrong. We got a remit from one of our AGMs, I'm not sure what year it was, that the fluoride issue, so this was a remit from the whole sector, that the fluoride issue was a public health issue and not something that we would advocate on, that we would leave that to central government to deal with. So that is the genesis of our engagement in that issue. Secondly, around safety and security of elected members, we take that very seriously, no matter what the issue is. We are doing a huge amount in that area. In fact, at the All of Local Government meeting on Friday, this Thursday, actually, we are releasing a guide that pulls together all the work we have done around protecting elected members from whatever it is and what you can do yourselves to support that. Over the last few 18 months, we've done a lot of work in that space, so we're pulling that all together into a guide that will be released this week. We think it's really important, not least in an election year.
Can I just quickly add to that, and absolutely acknowledge everything our Chief Executive has shared, but on this one in particular, Councillor Benny, can I say, just like everything, nobody's perfect, and on this I actually do think we have dropped the ball around, and I think it's important to acknowledge that, because I don't want to come here as Local Government New Zealand and then say we're everything for everyone, but then we're nothing for no one or anything like that. But I think on this one in particular, and this is where I hold that on myself too as your zone rep, while I agree that Local Government New Zealand is it non-partisan, is neutral over fluoride and leaves it to central government around the support for elected members and safety, I think more could have been done by us as an organisation or by me as your zone rep to even utilise the resources of the organisation just to bring people together who are of a similar mind. That didn't happen, and for that I apologise.
And on that note,
Follow-up question?
if we did not respond to your emails for that, I apologise.
Councillor Benny's got a follow-up question.
So a follow-up question. So you talk about the remit that was issued, and I take it that was several years ago. And it's a comment more than a question, saying that you'd have to have your head buried in the sand to realise that this is not a very topical thing for our country, for our councils at this point in time. And to me, LGNZ's gone missing on this one, and thank you, Moko, for acknowledging that. However, it doesn't make it any easier. So not really a question. Thank you.
Thank you. And just one, this has come up in another meeting we have had with a different council, and the suggestion was made by that council that they are going to put forward a remit to this year's AGM on that topic to try and get a different view from the membership. So that's an option too.
Thank you, Susan. No other questions? Okay. All those in favour? Any opposed? Carried. Thank you, councillors. Thank you, Mayor Moko and Susan. Thank you for coming along. We'll now move on to the next item. Now, because, again, I have a direct conflict here as I am on the National Council, Councillor Hulse will actually be taking over the chair at this.
Okay, so we'll move on to item 7.1. It's notice of motion from Councillor Marie Olsen, Local Government New Zealand. Councillor Olsen, would you like to speak, please?
Sorry, I didn't hear that. Sorry.
Read it.
Yeah.
The mic.
Okay. Right. Thank you, everyone. Thanks for being here today. I feel somewhat disadvantaged, I have to say, by having that presentation before my motion, but anyway, I shall give it my best shot. Right. Mr. Chair, fellow councillors.
Sorry, point of order. Do we have to move and second this first before she speaks?
She's just starting to speak, so she'll move the motion.
I'm just giving you my speech. Is that acceptable?
Yeah.
Oh, I moved the motion, sorry. I haven't got it in front. Sorry, I'm not used to this, sorry. Thank you. So the motion is, sorry, I apologise, that Whangarei District Council withdraw from local government, LGNZ, New Zealand.
If we have a seconder, please.
Sorry, God, I'm so nervous.
Councillor Golightly, second it. Yep. Okay, Councillor Olsen, proceed, please.
Yes, right now. Okay. So, Mr. Chair, fellow councillors, thank you for the opportunity to speak to this motion today. I shall take the paper as read, and hopefully you've all done your homework, and I ask that you give careful consideration to this motion, especially as dollars are tight. I move that Whangarei District Council formally withdraw its membership from LGNZ effective as soon as possible. I have to say this decision doesn't come lightly. LG provides a collective voice for councillors, facilitates networking and other policy advice and training. However, we must critically assess whether the benefits of membership justify the cost. Firstly, and most importantly, the financial cost, which we've already had a discussion around. The yearly subscription of $101,000 per annum plus GST
and the cost of attending conferences of $15,512 plus GST, which covers the cost of travel, accommodation, the dinner at the conference and things, and airfares, well, travel. If we were to withdraw, this would be our saving, small, but still a saving to the ratepayers of our district. For a council like ours facing budget shortfalls, rising rates and infrastructure demand, these funds could be better allocated to another core service, whether it be fixing roads, upgrading or providing new water infrastructure, or supporting community facilities. Secondly, our strategic priorities. As a council, we are elected to serve our community and its unique needs. While LG&Z advocacy is valuable, we can directly engage with central government through other channels. We have the capacity to build a strong relationship with government and advocate for our district's needs without relying on an intermediary. Third, we must consider effectiveness. Other councils around New Zealand have questioned LG&Z's ability to deliver tangible outcomes on major issues like housing or, as Councillor Benny has discussed, fluoridation. I know personally, when I emailed Sam Broughton, right back at the initial stages of this fluoridation debate, his response to my email was in the negative. Basically, go back to the Director General of Health. We don't want a part of this. So, and as it's stated in the paper, in the presentation paper, LG&Z are there to support local government. I have to say, in this instance, I found them sadly lacking. By withdrawing from LG&Z, we can focus on targeted local solutions and collaborate with neighbouring councils or regional bodies as needed without the overhead of a national organisation. Other councils, as you may be aware, have already withdrawn, i.e. Auckland and Kaipara, and they seem to be coping okay. Anyway, I acknowledge concerns about LG&Z's collective voice or access to training. However, we can mitigate these through alternative channels such as regional partnerships, direct government engagement or private training provider, or utilising in-house skills. And if these skills aren't there, why not? Withdrawal does not isolate us, it empowers us to prioritise our community's needs and allocate resources strategically. In closing, I urge you to support this motion to withdraw from LG&Z. This is not about dismissing the value of a collaboration, but about making prudent, responsible choice which focus on our ratepayers' priorities. By redirecting these funds and our efforts, we can deliver measurable benefits to WDC's residents while maintaining strong advocacy through other means, i.e. we're a shareholder in Northland Inc., the JREC and Mayoral Forum, plus other platforms. While LG&Z offer crisis media support, as stated in the paper, we can access this in-house when required, and I cannot see the benefit of having two avenues of support. Any recommendations or submitted to central government, if accepted, would be benefit to us regardless of being a member or not. The templates, as mentioned in the paper, the cost to establish these templates is huge and are costly, and most are already set up now, so we could modify these as needed, therefore these would no longer be necessary. The Code of Conduct and all other guides as referred to in the presentation paper are now established and again could be modified and reviewed or new ones created as necessary. Surely we have the skills to do this in-house. And if not, why not? In closing, finally, I would not be moving this motion if I felt we received value for ratepayers' money and currently being a member of LGNZ is not good value. I do not feel we get bang for the ratepayers' dollars. Thank you for listening.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Olsen. Now we've got a couple of speakers lined up already. We've got Councillor Carol Peters.
Thank you, Phil Hulse. Thank you. As you know, I have been involved in setting up a number of organisations during my short lifetime. One was a community health centre up in Whangarei. We belonged in that community health centre to a community health Aotearoa, which actually gave us the abilities to learn a lot. But the organisation that, like, I'd like to quote most is community law Aotearoa. So I set up community law in Whangarei and Northland, Taitokoro wide, and we belonged to the national organisation. Now, if you know, community law receives its money when banks loan money for, so people put money in for a house, and it's in a trust for a period of time. The interest from that trust goes to community law throughout New Zealand. There was a complete bomb out of the housing market, and therefore the money was not available. So collectively, we decided to go to the government, individually and collectively, through community law. So each one of the members went to their local politician, central body politician, and lobbied each one individually. So we had both the individual and the collective. The same thing can apply with this collective. It has the potential. I don't know if we do it enough, but it definitely has the potential. I think we already receive very good collective service from this organisation, and I think it would be a retrograde step to withdraw. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Holmes, please.
I've got a point of order that I'd like to seek clarification on, please.
Okay.
On page 73, the notice of motion, could I check that that is, in fact, Councillor Olsen's signature on the notice?
Can I please respond to that?
Yes, please.
It is. It was after I had my surgery on my left hand. I'm left-handed. I tried to attempt it with my right hand.
We'll take it as a yes.
That's a yes, then. I wanted to check that, because and that's perfectly legitimate. Thank you for clarifying that. I take offence at that. Not a stupid question. That's a genuine question. It did not look like it had been written by the author, which is why I asked the question. So that was my point of order. Thank you for that. So in terms of speaking to this, I fully support our membership of LGNZ. I believe that the value that this organisation receives far outweighs the monetary cost, which we've already identified as a shade under 90,000 plus GST. I think we receive multiples of that, and it is a tiny fraction of our annual budget. And I note the comments about being careful with money. Well, you know, we're going to come and talk about other issues where we've spent a lot of money in other fatuous, ridiculous cases quite soon. So I do think it's slight double standards talking about wasting money at this juncture. So I fully support our membership. I think we get great value, and I would urge other members around the table to vote against this motion from Councillor Olsen on the table.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Holmes. Councillor Connor.
Thank you. Just to note as well, it's not a conflict of interest. I'm the Zone 1 rep for our area on the Young Elected Members, and I'm on the Young Elected Member Committee, but I don't feel that that's in the space of that. Anyway, the last year has gone by fast since we last discussed this. A couple of the points that I'm going to raise have already been raised, but I will bring them up because this is what I've got. Being included in LGNZ provides a valuable support network that would otherwise be impossible to recreate in any other way. These include the Young Elected Members Network, Te Maruata, and they started using events and technology to support women, as recently highlighted the need for this in this space because of the amount of toxicity that actually is ridiculous. While central government can often feel disconnected from us, from our more focused locale, LGNZ provides a space where we can provide our collective voice from those in very similar communities around the country, the volume to be heard. This can be through remits, as already been stated, and also, whilst it may not fit everybody's point of view, look at our council alone. We have many different views. It's never absolutely clear. Look at our public, exactly the same is the concern. We have had people in the past, in this term and last term, saying, why should a young elected member network be a part of it when everybody is needed that support? And absolutely, everybody does need that support. But for a young elected member, potentially being 18 plus, coming into this council, sitting around so many people that are established, think about it if you're a lone individual and a young elected member who's in this space. You feel daunted. And this isn't coming from here, it's coming from other spaces. The Akona Learning Platform provides valuable material to new and ambitious elected members to do the best for our people and ourselves in the role. This learning material includes elected member induction and mayoral school, as stated, so that people thrown into the depths can stay afloat and even succeed. My words. To remove ourselves now is putting those new elected members or mayor at a disadvantage from the beginning. Research data gained from LGNZ helps us shape our LTP. Staff are able to access this as well. Being included allows our Zone 1 region an improved voice at a national level. If we think we can do better, then why don't we help and lead and involve ourselves more with LGNZ? A comment that's just been mentioned of why don't we connect better with central government ourselves? And we have just recently built up a stronger voice in another group to have that voice for us, indirectly from us, which I think is really annoying, but this is the way that it's set up and how we've got it to go. Final point. Me mahi tahi tātou mō te oranga o te katoa. We should work together for the well-being of everyone.
Thank you. Okay, Councillor Golightly.
Oh, thank you, Your Worship. Or Councillor Deputy Worship.
That's a bit premature.
I'm just going to sort of speak pretty quickly on Councillor Olsen's notice of motion and support for Councillor Benny. How I've sort of seen this over the past sort of few months is that fluoridation was a major topic and issue for our council. We've heard the word support thrown around an awful lot this morning, and I haven't even counted the times it's been said. But for me, it seems that, when LGNZ agree with topics like that, sort of politically, then we may get some support. But a contentious issue, like, dare I say it, fluoride and the stance we took, there was a marked lack of local support. And therefore, I will be supporting, and I seconded Councillor Olsen's notice of motion. Thank you, Deputy Worship.
Thank you. Okay, any other speakers? Okay, Councillor Yovich.
Thank you, your Deputy Mayor. Just in relation to the motion, I will be supporting it. Cost actually isn't as relevant for myself. Yes, it is an issue, but I think we're pretty neutral on that. Where I come from, and having attended last year's AGM, I see it as lost its way as an organisation. I take on board the organisations and the professional bodies comment, and I am, I'm a member of a few, being Chartered Accountant, Institute of Directors, and they too have lost their way, some of them. And where it's at a point where I am actually considering my position. But other councils have also thought that LGNZ has lost its way. And my decision is coming down to the political side of this. The collective voice that I've just heard mentioned wasn't on display at the AGM. The faction that ran that down there was so politically biased that even the present government only had a few minutes to speak, whereas the opposition government actually had the whole floor. So I think the political agenda, as alluded to by one of our other councillors in a previous motion, was quite apt in terms of where a body should stand. I'm on the North Power Trust, and we're part of the Electricity Trusts organisation, and that is an organisation that actually hasn't got political. It plays and with all the political parties, because we are after one vision, and it's a coordinator vision, and I do not see LGNZ as having the collective voice that we do need. So I will be supporting Councillor Olsen's motion.
Okay, Councillor McKenzie.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I didn't really have to write a speech for this because it's all summed up by the President of LGNZ, Sam Broughton, in his introductory piece, which says, figures show that a council choosing to leave LGNZ on the basis of cost saving doesn't make sense. Councils often end up spending far more on these individual services, and councils leave for political reasons. Often reasons that don't reflect LGNZ's current direction or our actual relationship with the government. Financially leaving LGNZ to save money is a false economy. Councils ends up paying more for buying back the services individually. We know that LGNZ is in fact not politically biased because they have a particularly democratic way of working through particular issues, and they advocate on those issues that only the issues that have broad consensus across the country. I see this as nothing more than political grandstanding in election year, and I urge you to see it for what it is and not support this motion.
Councillor Harding.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Yeah, I won't be supporting this motion. I also attended the LGNZ AGM last year, and I had a hugely positive experience to sit alongside our mayor, other council members, our CEO, and respond to the remits was a highlight of that actual LGNZ conference, and being able to support the votes, you know, kind of on the spot was fantastic. And then the overwhelming tautoko of the whole room around the Māori wards was something I'll never forget. The whole, I don't know, how many people? Maybe 1,000, 1,500. It's something that you have to experience once in your life. And that only comes from a wave of hands, people pushing the buttons. Councillor Golightly talked about support, you know. And along with that, all of the presentations, the conferences, yeah, it is going to be political because you're going to get the national representatives there, the Crown representatives there. And I guess I've always been one into being around a collective. You can only stand on your own for so long without the people that are on your shoulders and beside you and behind you. But mihi atu kia kuia, you know, Councillor Olsen, and that's her opinion and that's her point, ka pai. And this is my experience from what I got. And I know you went to LGNZ the year before too, so, but I just needed to share that because I think it's very important. Kia ora.
Thank you. Councillor Cooper.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Appreciate the opportunity to speak. I'd like to start off by just clarifying what I have heard in the sake of, in the effort to be fair to all parties. Now, when we talk about the fluoride debate, what I heard, both from our presenters in the previous item and from the letter or email that was repeated in the moving of this motion from the chair of the LGNZ, was that the standing of LGNZ was very clear. It was an issue that had been, by an Act of Parliament, placed in the hands of the Director-General. Therefore, it was not an issue which LGNZ would be taking a stand on. And we've also heard that was following a remit. Now, we have heard that perhaps it was time for that remit to be revisited. Councillor Benny, fair point. But at the moment, that is what they were working under. Secondly, I've heard the LGNZ people say that, that there are things that perhaps they could have done better, and they've acknowledged that, and I say full credit to them for that. I've heard in this argument that Councillor Jovich feels that perhaps it's lost its way, and that's a fair observation from a man who's been to the meeting, and as he says, followed and belongs to several other groups which have national body meetings, and from time to time, I think everyone would agree that there is a need for voices to speak up and say, actually, we think they've lost their way, and that's what happens at the national conferences. I have heard that put forward as an argument that because Auckland and Kaipara have left LGNZ, we should follow suit. And I guess my answer to that is that Auckland is roughly 1/5 of the population of this country. So it is a completely different animal to Whangarei, and we must not confuse ourselves as being on the same level as Auckland. As far as Kaipara is concerned, they are at the other end of the scale, funnily enough. And it's been reported in the paper that they feel that with some of the reforms coming through, and again, I can only go what's reported in the paper, the Mayor is quoted saying, well, somebody in the council is quoted saying they're wondering about their very survival as a council and how they can afford to meet these things. I would have thought that was an argument for belonging to Local Government New Zealand myself. I've heard in the argument put forward in the moving of the motion that we should be focusing on roads and that we can come up with our own professional development. Personally, I think it's just a case of reinventing the wheel. I think at times like this, when it is tough, and we have an organisation in place for a cost that is as you know, totally, as our Chair of Finance said, basically a neutral cost. It's there, it's ready to go. We should be focusing on the safety of our people. We should be focusing on the economic growth that we need as a region so that we can pay our rates. And we should be focusing on the education of our people. And that is our job, ladies and gentlemen, to focus on the must-haves and the core business that we do. Now, the roading is an interesting one, isn't it? It was suggested that we could put the 80-odd thousand into roading. I wonder if people fully
Point
understand.
of order. It wasn't just roading, there were other.
It's normal to wait for the chair to ask you for your point of order, but never mind. I'll carry on. Thank you, Chair. We talk about roading. And I wonder if people realise how the roading equation works. Half of what we get for roading comes from central government in the form of a subsidy. That subsidy is arrived at by negotiating with the government. You're going to have a far better position to negotiate if you're part of a crew, part of an organisation that can go down with a united voice and put the case, for example, of rural councils who have many kilometres of road with few people living on them, but they still need to be serviced. So professional development was another one that was mentioned. Why would we go out and recreate professional development when it is there for us to be used? So, ladies and gentlemen, I cannot support this motion. I feel strongly that our focus of all our elected members should be on our core business and that we should be delivering that to our ratepayers. And the other thing I would note is we must not fall into the trap of when we get an answer that we don't like, we kick up bally-ho and throw the baby out with the bathwater. We've had an answer from LGNZ that we didn't like about fluoride, some of us. So be it. There was a reason, they've explained their reasons. We now must suck up and get on with our core business and focus on our ratepayers and delivering our job to them. Thank you.
Councillor Benny.
Thank you. Boy, have I heard some ramblings there. This is not about whether we like or do not like their stance. This is about acknowledging how they get to that stance. And fluoride is only one topic. I'm all in favour of parent bodies for organisations. They're like our union, but they must be effective. And I'm sorry, they are not effective, whether it's fluoride or others. I had a look at some of the remits. Remits are a wish list. We could have a remit that the war in Ukraine finishes tomorrow. It means nothing unless it's backed up with meaningful push, and this local government New Zealand needs to be current and they need to be effective. And I'm sorry, I don't believe they are.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Reid.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Just a couple of things, if I could. I commend Councillor Olsen for having the grit to stand in front of her peers and propose this motion. That takes some guts. To be accused of grandstanding in an election year, I think is totally unfair. We should be showing respect rather than trying to demonise. And I respect everybody's views on this whole subject. For me, I did speak earlier, and I think LGNZ is losing direction. I think, as Councillor Benny, he probably took some of the words clean out of my mouth there. It's people like us. We may pull out, we may not. But unless we have this conversation, LGNZ will think they are just doing a beautiful thing and they will continue on their merry way until your membership pulls you up and gets you back into line. And I've seen this happen in organisations that I've been a part of since 1990. And that's a considerable spell, I might add. And it cost me to be a part of that organisation. I was actually a director of it for 3 years when I was considerably younger and had more energy. I think LGNZ needs a wake-up call. And I think today, having Zone 1 member and His Worship here and Susan, I think they will take that message back to LGNZ and say, hey team, we need to have a look at where we're going, what we're doing, how we're doing it. I feel political bias is now beginning to show up within LGNZ, and that really, really deeply concerns me. And I'm still not certain on which way I'm going to vote on this. We'll just have to wait and see.
Okay, Councillor Rooker.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, some good points being raised, I guess, on both sides. I just wanted to, I guess, reiterate, you know, money was a big issue. We talked about the money thing. I think based on the conversations that's been had, the money aspect has been somewhat mitigated in some aspects in terms of how that money has been spent and how beneficial it is for us. But also, I just wanted to read in there from the agenda that it should be noted that the funding for travel, you know, is included in the elected member and meetings budget and the mayoral budget, all of which we're in budget with this financial year. So those aren't extra costs; they actually are budgeted and factored for. So so in just terms of money, I just wanted to add that point in there as well. But we've had many a meeting where we've talked about the need for collective voice. You know, this is what that is. Councillor Benny raised the point around, you know, how ineffective they have been recently, and I think what's more ineffective is nothing, is no participation, and is not being a part of it, not being a part of the conversation. So, although they may not be effective in people's opinions right now, at least when we're a part of it, we have the ability to affect what they talk about, what they discuss, the remits that are put forward, you know, albeit a remit with sometimes no teeth, at least we get to participate and put forward ideas into it. Without it, then I would argue it's more ineffective because we're not participating in anything, in any conversation. So, yeah, can't support the motion, but appreciate all the conversations. Kia ora.
Thank you. Councillor McKenzie, you've spoken already.
Yeah, question, Mr. Chair?
One question.
Yeah. On page 39, it talks about regional deals. Am I right in thinking that LGNZ advocated for regional deals that are now on the table, and that the President Sam Broughton actually went to Manchester and spoke with the mayor over there about their experience with regional deals and brought that back to New Zealand, advocated for it, and has now got that on the table for us, which we are applying for?
That's an opinion, and he did go overseas to research some, but still only one opinion. There's other people lobbying for a regional deal. Well,
been a strong voice,
Sam
and
Broughton.
it's in number 7
sorry,
page 39.
That's correction. There's other people lobbying for a regional deal well before
granted.
Sam Broughton. Thank you. Okay. So being around the table, I'm the last speaker, and so I'm going to bring up a few points that haven't been covered in this debate. First of all, I like the intent of the notice of motion, but I must condemn the way the previous item was handled. It's very unusual to get an agenda item containing information from local government prior to the notice of motion. The notice of motion, the previous item should have been a backup to the notice of motion. So that upsets me greatly, and it's against our procedures of this council. So I don't know how that happens, but I'll be looking into why that happened. Very, very unusual, and it's very, very hard on the move of the notice of motion. So all the local government is supportive documentation that should have come in after. That's the first point. The second point is local government New Zealand's been around a long time. They are one of the leading exacerbator of rate increases. This is local government, because they are a collective of councils. Councils have got to take on responsibility of trying to minimise rate rises. Here we are with local government New Zealand in the lead, talking to government officials all right, and they have not come up with any suggestion of how to reduce rates for our ratepayers. Our ratepayers pay all these costs for people to go down there. We just heard through speakers around the table about added costs, added costs. The ratepayers are funding all that, and yet we've got a local government New Zealand not coming up with some formulas. I'll give you one for a start. Under Helen Clark's government, way back here, they brought in a 10-year plan. And every year we get in a wider scope of the 10-year plan and the facilities and procedures the council have to look after now. Wouldn't it be great for local government New Zealand to say, let's look at that, let's cut out some of the stuff and it won't be handled by local councils? We are not going to do it. We don't see any of that. Instead, we get last 3 year increases, 6% increase, 5%, and this year they forecast a 9% increase. They're an exacerbator of cost for our ratepayers. They're there to look at things and to bring the costs down. We've heard the debate about, the fluoride issue, all these other issues. They are still funded by our ratepayers. They still could come out with a public view when they're asked a question. Non-replying to emails is certainly a no-go at this level, although we had an apology for the chair, or for the CEO. One thing I've learned being around the council table, and I've been to Wellington many times and I've attended a lot of the local government functions down there. The last one I went down to was actually quite interesting. There's a huge debate about the under-16s, reducing the voting down to 16. It is amazing how many speakers spoke on that. But there was no one speaking on what makes up an efficient councillor. It's all about getting young people in, helping young people, but there's no debate about what is an efficient councillor. What would ratepayers want in their councillor? There's none of that. And I feel that's the #1 requirement that should be addressed. I've been part of this council when we withdrew from local government New Zealand before. The best attention, the best notice we ever got is when we pulled out, because local government came courting to us. And we actually got some ears. People came with ears on and starting to listen. It's a shameful thing when it's been dismissed around the table here that, Auckland's pulled out, Kuiper pulled out, and blah, blah, blah. Auckland is 1.6 million people. Kuiper, Western Bay of Plenty, and Christchurch have also pulled out. That equates to about 44% of the population of New Zealand. 44%. So that is a major conflict. It's no wonder we've got the CEO up in this meeting today, isn't it? But I know, because all around the country, there's going to be people in local government listening to this broadcast. And I want to look at them and say to them, do your job, look after the funder, because the funders cannot afford this increased cost day on day on day on day when they're in a position to do something about it. That is what I want from local government New Zealand. I do not want, it's too hard, we haven't got time. And the second thing is, just use your elected members in your room. Don't worry about all the consultants who are getting all the money over here to advise the elected members on what elected members should be. So it's pretty simple to me. So to take it from my point of view, I am going to support the notice of motion because there's two things going to happen out of this. It's going to be a closed vote, and we're going to get local government coming back to us real quick because they don't want to lose another member around the table. And this is election year. And we're saying we've got some problems with local government New Zealand. We want them to step up. We want to advocate for our councils and advocate for our ratepayers particularly. Okay, with that, I'll now go to the vote. Right of reply first, please. Do you want to write a...
No right of reply, thank you.
Okay, division's been called. Councillor Conniff called. No. Councillor Holmes. A division. All those in favour of the motion, please raise their hand.
Councillor Reid, Councillor Olsen, Councillor Jovich, Councillor Reid, Councillor Olsen, Councillor Benny, Councillor Golightly, and Councillor Hulse.
That's 6.
Against?
Against?
Councillor Ruka, Councillor Peters, Councillor Mackenzie, Councillor Holmes, Councillor Cooper, Councillor Harding, Councillor Cooper, Councillor Connop.
Okay, so the motion has lost 7-6. 7-6, so that concludes that item. And now the wish of the Mayor will take over the chair again. And I've got to go across and make an apologies to our Northern Regional Council, Joe Reed's committee, our Economic Development Committee, that started at 10 o'clock. So I wish you well. Thank you.
Thank you, councillors. We're back on to the agenda items there. And it was good debate, good interesting listening to that, and great to hear from everyone's have a point of view and action about it. Just for Councillor Hulse's sake, the JREG meeting is actually was being put on hold because as requirement from any joint committee that we have with the Regional Council, they need a representative from all the councils, and unfortunately at the present moment they're waiting on Mayor Jepson and Councillor Hulse. So they'll be heading across there shortly. Mayor Muckel's going to head off to that meeting as well, and thank you for coming in, Right, councillors, we're now moving on to item 7.2, which is on page 75. And this is the fluoridation litigation decision. Councillor Benny, are you moving an amendment? Or a motion, should I say?
Yeah, I will move it, but I won't be able to speak on it, I'm sorry.
Okay. So, just for the people's, have we got that up on the screen? It's just coming up on the screen. Councillor Benny did send through a motion that he'd like to put up. And for the Councillor Benny's sake, I will read what he's moving, just so that everyone understands. That the Council, 1, notes the decision of the High Court dated the 21st of March 2025, in which Council's application for interim relief was unsuccessful. 2, notes the legal advice that it has received from Jeremy Brown in relation to the judicial review and decision and declaration proceedings. 3, notes a letter from the Crown Law dated the 17th of April 2025. 4, approves the withdrawal of Council's judicial review proceedings. 5, approves the withdrawal of Council's declaration proceedings. 6, authorises the Chief Executive to undertake those actions and instructions necessary to give effect to Council's resolution. And then on top of that, we have 7, that Council install a fluoride-free tap for Whangarei residents, as other councils have done, providing water that has not been treated with hydrofluoric acid, noting that natural levels of fluoride may exist. This will allow residents to obtain free drinking water which is untreated with hydrofluoric acid. 8, that the affidavits of Philippe Grandjean and Bruce Lampier be added to Whangarei District Council's or WDC's water website, and that's the website which is listed there, which shows the fluoridation and how that progress is going through. 9, appoints Councillor Gavin Benny. Now, Councillor, is there an amendment on that part?
Yeah, can I just put or nominee, please, because I'm unsure of. Thank you.
Yep. Councillor appoints Councillor Gavin Benny or nominee to work with staff to prepare an educational statement on the risks of possible implications of treating the water supply with hydrofluoric acid. And 10, that once completed, the statement will come to the May 2025 Council meeting for ratification. Councillor Reid, you're seconding that. Councillor Benny has already indicated that he's not able to speak to the motion. He would have liked to have spoken to the motion.
Point of order, Your Worship, if I may. Yep. Just to ask a point of clarification around that amendment in point 9.
Yes.
When, and this is probably for Councillor Benny, but someone to answer it. So when we say or a nominee, are we in? Is that a nominee of Councillor Benny or a nominee of this council? Because I'm unclear from the wording.
Very good point. That would be a nominee from this council. Councillor Benny, you happy with that? Yep, he's happy with that to be added. Councillor Reid, as you second it, you're happy with that as well? As I said before, Councillor Benny is at home today, and he has acknowledged that he's unwell, so he wanted to attend Council's meeting today to make the motion available for everyone to talk on. Councillor Peters.
A question, Your Worship. Number 7, I understand there's already a tap that's been provided to the government, to the ratepayers. Do you want to change that to more taps?
No, the requirement under law actually states that we should be providing we can provide a fluoride-free tap. It's not about providing an additional one, it's about making sure it's well known and able to be accessed by people.
So my point still stands that probably more than one tap would be a good idea.
Okay.
I don't know whether I'm asking for an amendment to that, or it's probably to 7.
I'm just going to check with the mover to see whether the mover is comfortable with changing his motion.
I just want to confirm. Sorry. Is there a tap somewhere? I wasn't aware that there was a tap.
Yeah, there is.
Actually, the CE is just saying, no, there is no tap at this present moment. So, Simon, would you like to explain that, or would you like Andrew to explain that? Andrew? So it's a question to Andrew, so thank you for asking the question.
Through the Chair, there's no specific tap that we've got. The only areas without fluoridation at the moment are Mangapai, Whangarei and Poroti. So a public tap in that area wouldn't have fluoride in it, but it's not been specifically designated as a fluoride-free tap.
And just for clarification's purposes for the elected members, Poroti has been asked by the government to have fluoridation added to it.
That's correct.
Okay.
So there has been some publicity about this tap, so I think that needs to be clarified in the public domain.
I think what Councillor Benny's motion, now he can correct me if I'm wrong here, I need to make sure that what his intent is, that the fluoride-free tap is actually then publicly advertised and marketed as this is a fluoride-free tap. So that is the purpose of that. Councillor Benny, is that correct?
Exactly, and I haven't specified a location because I wanted to do it for the most cost-effective and best place for it, and I would like staff to work on that, but I just want to get one put in place.
Okay. That answer your questions okay?
Yeah, I was just surprised.
Yeah, that's okay. Councillor Ruka.
Yeah, just a question, Your Worship. Oh, I don't even really know what the question is, but I just wanted to know more about the fluoride-free tap as well, to be honest.
So what we'll do is we'll pose it across to Andrew, and we'll get Andrew to answer that. That may also require Rebecca to also answer, because there is a legal requirement there as well, with the way the law is written. Andrew?
Yeah, through the Chair. At the moment, within the agenda item, I provided a number of options, and the cost to sort of investigate those options in a little bit more detail. Basically, to avoid a fluoride, then we'd need to get water from a source that hasn't had fluoride added to it, and our recommendation would be that that source would be Whangarei, given that we do not add fluoride. We haven't been directed to add fluoride to that source, and the natural fluoride levels are very low. If we were to have a single tap, then that's also between Bream Bay and the city, so it's relatively central. The other option would be to transport water from Whangarei into the city and to put a tank somewhere in the city near a car park area, but that hasn't really been investigated at this stage as to where that would be. And then if we were to do the same in Bream Bay, the costs have been investigated, and to transport water into town on a say a weekly basis would cost in the region of $15,000 to $20,000 a year for each tap.
And Rebecca, you want to comment on the legal stance of what's actually been required in the law?
I think if you mean about not removing fluoride from supplies that have been directed to add fluoridation, is that what you're...
Well, the law states that they can provide a fluoride-free tap. I haven't got the legislation up in front of me at the moment. However, there is also the dictation that was required from the central government or the Director General of Health.
The Director General of Health, while can direct that you add fluoride, can also direct that you add a fluoride-free tap. and they haven't done so in this instance. So the supplies that we have been directed to fluoridate, to unfluoridate them, and those particular supplies would be against that direction. But there's nothing to say that it couldn't be in an area that's not yet been directed to add fluoride.
So, Councillor Rooker, does that answer your questions? Because you had several questions there. I wanted to make sure we were all clear on that. Councillor Olsen.
Thank you. Just a question I've got. Springs Flat, in the past, that has always been used for people who want good water. Would or could that be an option that we look at? I mean, it's a natural spring. It may reduce cost.
Yep, again, that is a question I'll pose to Andrew. Andrew, you've got to answer.
Through the Chair, I don't believe it's an option that Council should be looking at. I know they have detected E. coli in the water sources in the Springs Flat area, and any water source that we would be providing would need to be fully treated to drinking water standards. We could do that, but then we would still need to build a mini treatment plant there. So it would be quite an expensive option.
Thank you for the answer there. Councillor Peters, you got another question?
Another question.
Yep,
I haven't spoken, but
that's okay.
So I hear that there's two options. One, to transport water, and the second one, to filter out fluoride. What is the relationship, or the financial relationship between those two options?
I believe now, I am going to go to the C here. I think there's actually, what you're referring to is actually three options. So there's actually, Whangarei at the present moment has no requirement to put fluoridation in. So they have, I'm going to double check with Andrew here. They have chlorine in there at the moment.
Through the Chair, yes, that's correct.
Yes. So the requirement is to make sure they've definitely got chlorine. However, because the Director of General Health has not asked us to fluoridate that plant is available.
That's one.
Okay, the other option is, and as has been pointed out by Andrew, is to bring a tank into Whangarei and actually have it sitting somewhere. The third option, which you're saying is the option which they're not recommending, and that's coming from the CE and from Andrew, is that at our Fowl Valley plant, to then, once the filtration's gone all through the process, then have it filtered out again, but unfortunately that then takes out the chlorine, and the chlorine to keep the bugs out of the water.
So is it not possible to remove the fluoride from a small amount of the water that goes to the tap?
Yeah, and that's the third option there, and I'm going to go to Simon.
What's the financial?
We can remove the fluoride. In doing so, we'll also remove the chlorine. So we would have to re-inject chlorine, and you end up with a mini plant, if you like.
Oh, yeah, expensive.
Okay. Councillor Govich.
Thank you, Your Worship. Will this question...
Let's come close to the microphone.
Will this be taken in parts?
Yes. What parts would you like?
Issues around 8 and 9. In clause 7, just hearing from Andrew and a couple of the comments and about where I'm actually don't have an issue with the fluoride tap, but I do wonder whether our Councillor Benny would look to change that. That given that we don't know the costs, there are options at Whangarei, or there could be options at Well Valley. This is an open remit that says install a fluoride tap, and we don't know the costs. It's all in that. So I would more suggest that the council investigate installing a fluoride free tap and report and have that report back at May 25.
Yeah.
As I said, I'm in favour of that, but I would just my clarification around. So it's a question is that 7 looks as an open remit to do it, and we don't actually have the dollars. So that would be my question.
That's a good question. I'm just going to pose it to Councillor Benny on the fact of whether he's happy to have that changed. I'll then just check with the seconder as well. Councillor Benny?
Yeah, it's good sense.
He's happy with that sense? Okay, so just to make sure we've got that very clear, that council investigate a fluoride-free tap for Whangarei residents?
Just noting
installation.
Just noting that other councils that have been directed to fluoridate have provided taps in towns, like Rotorua, for instance. So there are obviously ways around it, but yeah, that investigate would be good.
The CE is also highlighted. Now I'm going to check with Councillor Reid and Councillor Benny. He'd like a date in there by June.
So May, a month is enough?
May is technically 3 weeks away from the next meeting.
All right then, go June.
June? Okay. So the June council meeting. Okay, is that, you guys have got that modified? Excellent. The June council 2025 meeting, okay. Councillor Benny, Councillor Reid, are you comfortable with that slight change there? Okay. Councillor Yovich, you got any questions?
No, just my statement around 8 and 9, I think, actually having something on the website, I'm not sure about in terms of our position from a political perspective. The point 9 was more the legal implications of what that actually places on council. Appreciate the work that will go into it and how far, and having staff fulfil that role. Under, you know, are we putting them in a position where they are not comfortable with it? So that was just my question, is whether that is really, I understand the nature of it and that, but whether we should be doing that. That was my point on where I have the issues with 8 and 9, or we're not comfortable with.
No. So we can take it in parts quite happily, Councillor. That's not a problem on that. You've got something to add to that? It wasn't really a question, that's all.
Sorry, I did think it was a question. I was quite happy to respond to that.
Yeah, it wasn't really a question. It was actually more of a statement. Okay. Councillor Cooper.
Thank you, Your Worship. We seem to be dancing around on a pinhead here. I just want to make sure I'm following it all. If the council provides water officially, it has to be treated. Am I correct? Because we have to meet the water standards.
So just as I clarified before there for Councillor Ruka, just so you make sure you understand quite clearly, we have been required to fluoridate 3 of our plants, not all of our plants.
Yes, but if, for instance, you wanted to put a fluoride-free tap anywhere, which is provided by council, it has to meet the standards of the Te Maro Roai. Is that right? So
there is a requirement under the law that we can...
Question to the... Yeah.
Yes, I realise that. I'm just answering to as best as I can.
That is correct.
Thank you. Yeah. That's fine. So therefore, it's very difficult to do it anywhere except at where that's what you're saying. That's what you're telling us.
Yes.
Very good. Thank you. That's me for now.
Okay. I'll answer your questions. Any other questions or concerns? Councillor Holmes.
Your Worship, just I suppose just supporting what Councillor Yovich has said there, I've got concerns about 8 and 9 too. If we were to publish the affidavits of Philippe Grangin and Bruce Lafere, thank you,
yes,
you're welcome,
yep.
On the website, then I feel it would be only fair that we published every other piece, for both sides of the argument, both for and against fluoride, and I think that's just not feasible. And I think in terms of appointing either Councillor Benny or indeed any other councillor or group of councillors in point 9, as we've discussed in many previous debates about fluoride, I don't believe this council is qualified to give advice, educational advice, for or against fluoride, so I would be certainly against that as well. In terms of the revised wording on 7, I could live with that. I mean, I've got no problem with investigating and coming back, reporting back with a budget and a feasibility piece. So that's where I stand on those amendments. So I'm assuming we're going to take these in part.
Yeah. That's correct. Okay. And just to make it very clear, and Nicolene's just highlighted, which I also picked up, when we take it in parts, we'll be taking 1 to 7 from what I'm indicating, 8 is a separate one, and then 9 and 10 as one motion, because technically You can't have 10 without 9. 1 to 6, sorry, thank you. Actually, no, 1 to 7, because I haven't heard any opposition.
Well, I'd like to have 1 to 6 and then take 7, 8, 9 and 10 separately, please.
Okay, right, appreciate that. Councillor Olsen.
Yes, point 10, wouldn't you have to change that to June?
No, Councillor Olsen, that's relating to point 9. So 9 and 10 are actually associated together.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Thank you. Thanks for the clarification.
Yep. Right. No other discussions? Councillor Mackenzie.
Just a clarification on the nominee one again. Like, if Gavin isn't going to be the appointed person, and don't we therefore have to nominate a specific person?
Yep.
During this meeting?
Yep. The motion's just been put. As I said, we've got a mover and a seconder. We're at the present moment just fine-tuning the motion. It's unfortunate we have to do this last minute.
If the motion goes through as it is,
yep,
who would the nominee be?
Well, the nominee would be out of this council meeting. At this present moment, no one has put their hand up or put a request through, so at the moment it would be Councillor Benny.
I see, okay.
So at this present moment, it's Councillor Benny. Not necessarily. It says all nominee, so at the present moment, it's Councillor Benny, which has been listed and named there. Okay? Right. Any other discussion? Councillors, well, I'll just talk to the motion before we go to the next piece. I actually have no problem with 1 to 7. Number 8, to me, I have no problem with listing that information up on the fluoride-free website, because at the present moment, the website with the fluoridation actually already has the government regulations up there. So I have no problem with also including the affidavits on there, because they were paid for by the public. So I have no problem with showing that information now that we are no longer proceedings with it, so that for information become public access anyway. And just putting it there next to the information from the government's legislation and legislation requirements, I think is quite fair in my mind on that one. Whereas point 9 and point 10, I am vexed on this particular points, and the reason I'm vexed on this particular points is because I, like Councillor Benny, totally understand why we have the positions that we have. However, it's not a council role to do education on that, and that's where I struggle with it. That's why I said I'm slightly vexed on that. Having the information available for the public to be able to make their own decisions, I think that's vitally important, and I think that's freedom of speech, totally allowed to make a decision on there, and totally allowed to have the information available to make that decision themselves. Going and saying and educating of it people, while we are a council and we're dealing with council legislation, and I do say again, we follow our legislation as close to the law as we possibly can, and if anything, we've followed it perfectly to the law in everything we do. And it's a bit hard for us to be able to be educators on something when we're not health professionals, and that's where I struggle with. As I said, I'm slightly vexed on 9 and 10. Other than that, the rest of the motion I have no problem with. As I said, from 1 through to 8, not a problem with at all. If anything, I think moving to that next step of actually providing a fluoride-free tap for people who would like to have that would be welcomed amongst our community. And I would love to know, after the tap is installed, how many people actually use it. I would love to see those stats, because that will actually really indicate to me the amount of people who actually live within Whangarei who want to have fluoride-free water. So that's something which I'm very interested in. Councillor Olsen, you've got something else to add?
I've just got a question, if I may, please. I'll just start off by saying some time ago I approached our water management about this, and I was just told a point blank, no, this can't be done. So I just want some clarification. Can you tell me now that this is something that we have been directed by government to do?
I'm sorry, Councillor, can you refrain your question and define me what you're actually referring to?
Well, the question is, have we been directed to do this as from government, to put in a fluoride-free tap? No.
No, so legislation allows, and Rebecca, I don't have the legislation in front of me. Can you quote the paragraph that it's actually referring to? Because I'm sorry, I don't have it in front of me here.
Apologies, I also don't have it in front of me, but it is, the Director General of Health can direct that a fluoride be added to the water. The Director General of Health can direct that a fluoride-free tap be provided. And they are subsections of the same section. It'll be one of the 116s.
And unfortunately, as I said, I don't have it in front of me here, which I normally do. Simon, you wanted to add something here?
I was just going to add, but has not at this point.
No.
Excuse the Chair, I can read that. It's within the fluoride legislation, a direction to add fluoride to drinking water may allow the local authority to supply at one or more specified sites water to which fluoride has not been added.
And in this particular situation, because we've only been directed from 3 sites to add fluoridation, this does then allow some sites to have that opportunity.
So my question is, when I asked that question, would this not have been known?
Andrew, I throw it back to you. I'm not too sure how you'd answer that one.
Through the Chair, the directive may allow. Now, in our directive, it didn't allow for that. So my reading of that is we would need to approach the Director General to get them to alter the directive to allow it. If they did that, then I don't see a problem.
Okay. So, councillors, we've got the motions. We're going to take it in part. Councillor Mackenzie, sorry.
Sorry, just to clarify, does that not mean that we then need to put in the motion that we have to write to the Director General of Health to ask for fluoride-free tap to be provided, and that her directives changes to account for that?
At this present moment, her directives have been quite clear and quite specific over 3 plants.
Yeah.
They were aware of other places.
So we can do it anyway. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I believe it would be under the investigation process that we would possibly write to them anyway, as a courtesy. And I think that's only a polite thing to do, but that would be done under the investigation side of things.
I'd just like to speak to the motion, Your Worship. Firstly, I'd like to acknowledge the intent of this challenge. Some people have dedicated years, sometimes, in some cases, their lives to this cause, and I acknowledge that. However, despite these good intentions, fluoridation isn't our decision to make, and my position has always been on the legality of this, not the science, because we have scientists for that. I have serious concerns about how this process has unfolded, and I feel compelled to point out some of the false claims that have been made by elected members along the way. For example, we were told that the contract didn't require us to commission the plant to keep the Ministry of Health funding. Well, that was wrong, because that is exactly what the contract required us to do. We were told that if we delayed rescinding the decision on not to fluoridate until the last minute, it would put more pressure on the Director General of Health and they would back down. Well, that was wrong too. The judge saw straight through this brinkmanship.
Point of order, if I can. Reluctantly as I want to do this, Councillor Mackenzie referring to comments that I have made.
Councillor Benny, what is your point of order, Councillor Benny?
So my point of order is he's just made 2 claims which are both false in their own assertions. They are both wrong. They're both, I assume, comments that I have made, and they are both clearly wrong.
Okay.
No one has ever said that she will give up. We have put pressure on her. I mean, that's. I'm sorry. Both those are just wrong. You can't make stuff up here.
Okay, Councillor Mackenzie.
I didn't even refer to Councillor Benny, Your Worship. It's obviously hit a nerve, but if I may continue.
Can you modify what you're saying there in that respect?
No, that I remember having these conversations, Your Worship. They're true.
In these chambers?
Yes.
Okay.
As I was saying, the judge saw straight through this brinkmanship and called this last-minute change disentitling conduct and a public disregard for law. There was speculation that the previous Director General resigned because of our stance, that we had them on the ropes, and they needed a graceful way of stepping down from their long-held position on fluoride. Well, that was wrong because the new Director General of Health, Audrey Saunderson, reaffirmed the exact same policy position.
Councillor McKenzie.
Some elected members said that they would risk jail
Councillor
for this.
McKenzie.
Can I just speak?
No, Councillor McKenzie, I've got a point of order here, Councillor McKenzie. You have actually just stated something which is actually incorrect and has not been stated in this chamber, which is that's in relation to they would stand down. That has never been stated within this chamber.
There has been speculation.
Councillor McKenzie, you said that it was stated in this chamber.
I said there was speculation, Your Worship, which is true.
No, Councillor McKenzie, there was no speculation about that. It was quite clear.
How do you know that, Your Worship?
It was quite clearly stated within this chamber many times that we had not any control over what the Director General of Health does. So,
if I may continue, Your Worship.
Councillor McKenzie, you please
refrain.
Councillor McKenzie, please refrain what you're saying and please refine it to what's the topic, please.
I'll move on, Your Worship. Some elected members said that they would risk jail, but when it came to the crunch, they flip-flopped and effectively shielded themselves from personal liability, leaving the ratepayers
Councillor McKenzie, a point of order has been called again.
Is wrong.
Councillor McKenzie, a point of order has been called. Councillor Reid.
I made one of those statements and I stick by it. And this is grandstanding.
Well, you didn't stick by it when
Councillor McKenzie, it's not a backwards and forwards. Okay, Councillor Reid, you've stated something there, Councillor McKenzie. Again, I question you and I ask you to please keep to the topic here.
I would have thought, Your Worship, this is a debating chamber and we're entitled to debate.
Unfortunately, Councillor McKenzie, you cannot debate something which the councillor has actually pointed as you being incorrect and wrong and stating factually information
which is not correct. It wasn't incorrect, Your Worship, it was stated in these chambers.
Councillor Reid has highlighted that...
You stated it in the media yourself.
No, actually, Councillor, I did not, and I made it quite clear on that. I said our council will never break the law.
I saw the paper, Your Worship. Okay.
Yes, what the media put in the paper and what is stated is two different things.
Well, okay. Fair enough. And finally, the decision to proceed with legal action was made by a casting vote. Technically allowed under standing orders, yes, but I would argue highly unorthodox given the contentious nature of the decision without a clear majority in the chambers or a public mandate to do so. Also, I think we have to question the legal advice that we have received. We applied for an interim relief which has, if it had been granted, the judge said would have permitted unlawful conduct. The judge called this a fatal flaw to our case. A basic legal principle was missed by our lawyers. The judge also noted that our judicial review had low prospects of success and that a declaration proceedings may also be viewed as a judicial review and therefore face the same difficulties. And here's the thing, a vocal opponent of fluoridation told me when I was chatting with him one day, even if they lose, they still win, because the real goal here is simply to raise the profile of the anti-fluoride cause. And if that's true, has council just been a pawn in a wider political agenda? And at what cost? At what cost to our community, left with a six-figure bill and nothing to show for it? At what cost to council, left with a scarred reputation with central government? We have been told repeatedly by the Mayor that this won't harm our chances in securing a once-in-a-generation opportunity for a regional deal, our only chance to rectify decades of underinvestment in our region. I sincerely hope that's not wrong too, because if it is, it would be frankly unforgivable. I urge my colleagues, let's let this legal challenge go. Let's get back in our lane, back to our core business, and act as responsible governors within the limits of the law we operate under. Ngā mihi nui kia koutou.
Councillor Olsen.
Yes, thank you. I'll shape this as a question. It's really more a statement.
You haven't spoken, so you can...
No, it's okay. If you go back through the minutes, it was I think you will find, that's the question, that it was me who actually said, I'm prepared to go to jail for this. Hand on heart, if it had happened, I would have stood by that. And so I just wanted to put that out there, that I had every intention of following through with that declaration, should it be needed.
Point of order, Your Worship. Like, if we review the vote from the last meeting, people decided to comply with the directive, and in order to do that, that meant that they wouldn't face any penalties, personal liability or potential jail. So how can you say that you would go to jail but then vote the opposite way?
Councillor Mackenzie, if I have a look at those minutes, which will come out, they will quite clearly show that there were some councillors who did vote against going through the motion. So I think it's very clear on that. So your point of order is actually overturned. Councillors, Councillor Benny, would you like your right of reply at this point? I'm
Your Worship.
conscious, Councillor, I've actually gone to Councillor Benny.
Well, you asked him if he wanted his right to reply. He hasn't replied yet, Your Worship.
Can you...
Just have. Sorry, I didn't realise Councillor Cooper was speaking for me today. I didn't intend to take my right of reply, but I actually do intend to now after hearing some of the comments that have gone on.
No point you're taking. Point of order, Your Worship. I had my light on, wanting to speak.
Actually, Councillor, as soon as I said, Councillor Benny, would you like your right of reply, that's when your light came on.
Are you denying me the option to speak, Your Worship?
At this present moment, as I've asked Councillor Benny for his right of reply, and he says yes, he wants to take
Point
his
of
right
order,
reply.
Your Worship.
Councillor Mackenzie, what's the point of order?
That is an abuse of standing orders. He is well within his rights to speak within these chambers. He is an elected representative of the people. He had his light on. You should let him speak.
Thank you, Councillor Mackenzie, for your reframes for the standing orders, and I will go to my team here, which actually clearly show the standing orders, that as soon as I've asked for the person to say the right of reply, they have that right of reply to have.
You didn't ask if there were any additional speakers.
I did actually, Councillor
No, you did not prior to asking if Gavin wanted the right of reply.
Councillor Mackenzie, we are following the processes here.
Yeah,
One second,
I'm making sure we are.
Yes, Councillor Mackenzie, I've heard you. And I'm asking you again, please be patient. As I said, I will refer to my team next to me here, who will check the standing orders. Yeah. So according to section 2112, which is the right of reply, Councillor Cooper did not have his light on when I asked Councillor Benny. No, I was looking here, and his light was not on while I was asking Councillor Benny. As soon as I asked Councillor Benny, that's when his light came on.
I'll support that too, because I saw it from this side too, and he did not have his light on.
So
you needed to have asked if there were any other additional speakers before you asked for the right of reply.
Councillor Mackenzie, once again, I am reminding you that we are following the standing orders of the chamber. There was plenty of time for chance for people to speak. I allowed many times for people to actually speak to the motion. Councillor Cooper actually asked several questions during the motion, and I asked whether he wanted to speak at that time as well. Councillor Mackenzie, I have actually made sure everyone has had that opportunity. Right now, I'm going to Councillor Benny.
If you were going to make sure everyone had the opportunity, you would give him the opportunity.
For the record, Your Worship,
and you're denying that.
I can help you here. Let's just lift this council out of this mess and just carry on with the proceedings. We have our credibility as
Thank you very much, Councillor Cooper, and which is why I'm going to Councillor Benny for his right of reply.
Oh, thank you. I didn't intend to take my right of reply, and I might struggle a little bit, but I think it's important that I do it. The one thing I hate in this debate is hypocrisy. Councillor Mackenzie has made a number of assertions at the start of his speech, which were clearly false in my mind. At one stage, he retracted slightly to say, oh, there were comments made to me. I'm sorry, that's not good enough in this chamber. You talk about what goes on in this chamber. The same councillor is going on about our relationship with government. And in February, he was interviewed by a national media and told them and put them on his councillor Facebook page that he was there in opposition to government policies. That is straight hypocrisy. These other councillors that call the money we've spent on the legal challenge ridiculous. Our council has not done this for no reason. We have done this for the safety, because we believe that it is unsafe for our residents. If you're not going to stand up for that, what will you ever stand up for? Ridiculous. Where were these councillors when we spent $1 million on a consultant for the roof for the stadium that was just completely out of reach of this council? Where were these councillors when the bridge, just if you look out the door, you can see that bridge there, hundreds of thousands of dollars overspent on that? Not a peep, not a word to be heard. I'm sorry, hypocrisy. We have heard so many false comments from our staff, from our CE. February 28th is the date we have to comply. You know, there has been so much debate, hypocrisy, and false statements in this. We have done a real service to this country, I believe. We have highlighted this issue. We have tried to fight it without breaking the law. We have not broken the law, contrary to popular belief. There's no need for anyone to go to jail. This debate, it needs to end. It needs to end now. We need to be united as a council. I tried today to introduce some items that we could be united in, and all I've heard is hypocrisy and false comments, and I'm really disappointed.
Thank you. Your reply has been had. We'll be taking this in parts, 1 to 6. Division has been called by Councillor Holmes. All those in favour of items 1 to 6, please raise your hands.
Councillor Jovic, Councillor Ruka, Councillor Reid, Councillor Peters, Councillor Olsen, Councillor Mackenzie, Councillor Holmes, Councillor Harding, Councillor Golightly, Councillor Cooper, Councillor Connop, Councillor Benny, and His Worship the Mayor. It's unanimous.
Okay, unanimous. The next item we'll take is item 7. All those in favour, please raise your right hand.
Councillor Jovic, Councillor Ruka, Councillor Reid, Councillor Peters, Councillor Olsen, Councillor Mackenzie, Councillor Holmes, Councillor Harding, Councillor Golightly, Councillor Cooper, Councillor Connop, Councillor Benny, and His Worship the Mayor. It's unanimous.
Yep. We'll now take item 8. All those in favour, please raise your right hand.
Councillor Reid, Councillor Golightly, Councillor Benny, Councillor Olsen, and His Worship the Mayor.
Those against?
Councillor Jovic, Councillor Ruka, Councillor Peters, Councillor Mackenzie, Councillor Holmes, Councillor Harding, Councillor Cooper, Councillor Connop.
Failed? Lost. Now we'll take items 9 and 10 together. All those in favour, please raise your right hand.
Councillor Ruka, Councillor Reid, Councillor Olsen, Councillor Golightly, Councillor Benny.
No. Yep. No, and that's 4. So those against?
Councillor Jovic, Councillor Mackenzie, Councillor Holmes, Councillor Harding, Councillor Connop.
And those abstaining?
Councillor Peters and His Worship the Mayor. Councillor Cooper, what was his vote? Against.
Thank you for clarifying, Councillor Cooper. The team, we just wanted to make sure. We may have to re-vote again just to double check on that.
Lost.
That is lost. Thank you, councillors. Appreciate your time with that one. We'll now move on to item... The team have just reminded me we are just on 11 o'clock and we are required at every 2 hours to have a stand-up and a break. We will have an adjournment for 10 minutes and we'll be back at 11:10. your seats. And we have item 7.3, which is the establishment of the Northern Water Services Working Group. Councillor Mackenzie, you are moving that, are you?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. And would you like to, that's on page 111. Would you like to read that out, please? I'll let him read it out first, eh?
Apologies. Recommendation that the council agrees to form an elected member joint council working group from the Kaipara District Council, Whangarei District Council and Far North District Council, focusing on local waters done well, LWDW program. 2, appoints the following 3 elected members to the joint LWDW working group. A, His Worship the Mayor, Vince Coccarello. B, Deputy Mayor, Councillor Phil Hulse, and just a slight change on C, Councillor Ken Cooper. Agrees the draft terms of reference for the joint LWDL working group as provided at attachment A. 4, agrees to appoint an independent qualified expert to the joint LWDL working group. 5, delegates to the joint LWDW, need a better acronym, working group with the authority to appoint the independent qualified expert to its membership. 6, agrees that the Whangarei District Council is the secretariat for the LWDL working group. 7, notes that the joint LWDL working group will make recommendations to each council for future decision making. 8, notes that the joint LWDL working group will be supported by an operational team from each council. 9, agrees that any costs incurred by the joint LWDL working group shall be shared equally between the councils or as otherwise agreed by the working group.
Now, Councillor Mackenzie, just to clarify, did you add a word in there of or was that?
No, that would have been an error. I didn't mean to.
Just making sure, because I thought I heard the word or and I was trying to work out where it was hiding.
Just a lot of words.
Okay, and Councillor Peters, you were seconding that, is that correct? Okay. Councillor Mackenzie, you'd like to speak to that?
Yeah, I would. I think that this working group is a really productive move, getting elected members around the table to discuss this, and as grateful as I am for being proposed as one of the appointed elected members, I believe Councillor Cooper, as the Chair of Strategy, Planning and Development, is actually very well placed to take on this role. He has very strong relationships with key individuals and other councils. And this is essentially a strategy piece of work. So if we were doing something in the realm of infrastructure, it would be relevant to have the infrastructure chair there. So for this one, I think it's relevant that we have the strategy chair on this working group. And otherwise, I endorse the recommendation, Your Worship. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Peters.
I endorse it too, and I would love to see a policy which banned acronyms. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Peters. You have made that comment many times to me, and I appreciate your comments. This one has actually been explained, though, so well done. Councillor Olsen.
Thank you, Your Worship. My question is around how that committee of the 3 elected members took place, how that happened, and my next question is exactly, well, sort of what Councillor Mackenzie says. Chair of Infrastructure, should he not have been included in this? Just my 2 questions.
Yep. So just for clarification's purpose, I had Councillor Hulse and Councillor Mackenzie come into my office, and they made it very clear that they would like to have this. We brought in the CE, and he went through the processes as well. From a working group side of things, what we wanted to make sure we had is we had someone from both camps effectively, so there was a clear indication of both sides so they could be represented at the same time. We need to make sure that it was going to be very, very clear across the other councils as well. So in other words, by having the mayor and the deputy mayor there, that then makes sure that the other councils have the mayor and the deputy mayor there as well, so that those conversations can actually have at that governance level. The next point on there, which is in relation to the strategy planning, again, Councillor Cooper did come into my office afterwards saying that he wanted to be on there. However, my discussions were only with Councillor Hulse and Councillor Mackenzie, and that's the discussions that they had had, and they were quite happy to be on that committee at that time. Going forward from this, as this is a strategy thing, I'm well aware that there will be other parts of this where other elected members will be brought in. For example, I can quite easily see the Chair of Finance, the Chair of Infrastructure being brought in from time to time to provide assistance for over certain aspects of this, because this is about getting the three councils actually working together and then involving all the elected members in actually the final decision, and then on top of that, getting the community, because at the moment we're getting the community feedback right now, and it's about getting that feedback and then saying, okay, where can we go from here, and what are the options going forward that we can all agree on?
Okay, so my next question is, why is this type of decision not made in an open council meeting where there's transparency, rather than behind closed doors?
Actually, Councillor Olsen, just to point out, we are actually in an open meeting right now, and the decision has not been made, Councillor Olsen, and I will remind you to please use the correct tone inside this chamber, as I have reminded councillors previously. This is the purpose of a council meeting, for decisions to be made. This is why we have the item come forward. The idea of having a working group was actually something which was strategic, and it was actually worked amongst the CEs, because they've realised that they need to make sure their elected members are all on the same board working together. So it's about all the region working together. Councillor Peters.
Oh, this is a statement, so it's a statement thing. I think.
Councillor Peters, you've already spoken. Sorry.
No, it was a question, wasn't it?
No, it was recorded as a statement.
Oh, okay, cool.
Thank you anyway. Any other, Councillor Connor?
Thank you. Yeah, this is a behemoth that has come from so many sides that we need to do the best that we can in this space. I'm glad to see that we will be working with the other councils as close as possible and bringing the things that have been discussed back to us to be able to make a further on decision later on in the piece. And this is just a comment on, and not against anything, but how agenda items get produced and made up, we can't do it on the fly as we sit in the chamber making things up. Things have to be written up, decided as a option for us to then decide, which, as we've had today, Councillor Mackenzie make a change to the suggested person to be able to put it in front of us today. It's the other behemoth of local government, of which and how we are. So I'm just looking for the best possible outcome for us, for our neighbours, for us, our tourist destinations, for everybody, and hope that it all works out as best as possible.
Thank you, Councillor Connor. Councillor Peters, you've got a question?
It's a question.
Excellent.
I can phrase it as a question. Is it not our process that the mayor and deputy mayor puts forward these things and then they're decided in this council? Is that the normal protocol?
So you're talking about when agenda items get put together?
No, when people are suggested for.
Yeah, it is commonly from when we start talking about a region, and we're talking about Northland as a region, it is about providing those leadership there of the people who are already talking together, so and officiating that process. So that is the way of doing it. It doesn't necessarily always have to be the mayor and deputy mayor. However, in this particular situation, from our council, because both the mayor and deputy mayor are on J-Reg, and unfortunately that meeting's going on today at the moment as well, and one of us can't, so one of us is there. To the same degree, for when we have those meetings with the other councils, we need to make sure that the same level of importance is put on them. Councillor Reid.
Thank you, Your Worship. All due respect to the item on the table, local water's done well. That has huge, possibly huge financial ramifications for WDC in undertaking this joint program. And for me, I think a studious fiscal overview is required on this, and all due respect to Councillor Cooper, I feel that we should have our finance chair should be part of this group. With his knowledge and abilities, I think we might have just made a little oversight.
Okay, so
can we have that changed?
So you're moving an amendment, just to clarify that, because I just make sure of that.
I will do, yes.
You're moving an amendment to have Councillor Cooper replaced with Councillor Jovich, is that correct?
Yes, Your Worship.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sorry, I need to clarify to make sure we get the correct questions actually asked and the statements asked. So you're moving an amendment. Do we have a seconder for that? Councillor Olsen, you're seconding that? Councillor Reid, would you like to speak to that?
I think I've pretty much made that clear, Your Worship. All due respect, I realise it is a strategy, but it could be a very costly strategy if we're not completely conversant with the item. Okay.
Okay, any other discussion over the amendment? Councillor Olsen.
Yes, just one question.
Yep.
Is it possible, so we've got 3 members, right, which is great. Can we have 4?
So what Councillor Hulse has made it, and unfortunately Councillor Hulse isn't here to talk to it, but Councillor Hulse has made it very, very clear. He says for the speed and agility, 3 members is ideal. And especially when you have a mayor and a deputy mayor, sometimes they can't be at both. So it's about making sure that they are able to be there. Yeah. As I said, I can't speak for Councillor Hulse, but he has made that very clear to me many times. Councillor McKenzie. You're speaking to the amendment?
Yes, Your Worship. Just to say, yeah, I think the comment about having representatives from both camps holds water, and I agree with your sentiments, Your Worship. And I think that it's important for us to approach it in that way. And I think that Councillor Cooper would do a good job in that regard. And I do think it is a strategic piece of work. It's really thinking very long term ahead, how we're going to work towards a potential CCO in the decades to come. That is something that requires strategic thinking, and I'm confident that His Worship the Mayor, the Deputy Mayor and Councillor Cooper will have enough fiscal nous to manage that aspect of the kaupapa. I'm also pretty comfortable with the way that this has actually unfolded. I think this is a good process. There's a recommendation put forward, and it's our prerogative as elected members to suggest any changes to that recommendation. I don't see a problem with that. So in that case, no personal slight or anything towards Councillor Jovich. I also think he'd do a good job. I just think in this particular instance, having Councillor Cooper on there makes sense for balance. Thank you, Your Worship.
Okay. Councillor Harding.
Thank you, Te Koromata. Yeah, I don't know if I can amend an amendment.
Unfortunately, no, you can't.
No, you can't.
No, you can signal an amendment.
You can foreshadow that amendment to remove it to, again, acknowledge the expertise that Councillor Jovich can bring to the team, but it is about a strategy first, and I know that also the Deputy Mayor works as the Deputy Chair for the Finance Committee, already works really closely with Councillor Jovich.
Point of order.
All of those.
Sorry, Councillor Comp, your point of order?
Point of order. In the past, when I've spoken to an amendment and wanted to foreshadow a further amendment, I've been held back. It wasn't made clear to Councillor Harding that if she spoke to this, she couldn't make a further amendment.
Fair comment.
Oh, sure. Good on you.
So, just to clarify, are you speaking to this, or you're going to do? Thank you, Councillor Connor.
I think I should just, let the process take its place and have that corridor along with it. Kia ora.
Thank you. Councillor Jovich.
I suppose I need to speak to this, given that I've been asked to be appointed to this committee, and I have no issues with that. As an accountant and a business advisor, strategy and strategic planning is at the forefront of our business. As of that, I am in a full day on Monday, on this Thursday. That is a full strategic planning, looking at the next 5-10 years for my accountancy business. So I smirk in terms of some of the comments that have been made, but I would welcome the opportunity to work as part of the working group. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Rooker.
Can I just ask again who we're moving? I kind of missed it.
So just to make it very clear, so there at the present moment there is an amendment on the table. Someone with a chocolate fish. There is an amendment on the table at the present moment where we have the item 2 is changed to His Worship the Mayor, Deputy Mayor, and then Councillor Paul Jovich. Rather, that's the amendment. Okay. Do you want to speak to that, or you?
No. Sorry, that was it. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, Councillor Connor.
Question. In regards to this, it was stated that the finance chair and the infrastructure chair would be worked with in throughout this at some stages, correct?
Mm-hmm. And that is correct. That is a question, and it's quite a valid question. To be realistic, I believe our whole council will be involved at one stage through the whole process, if not more than one stage, because this is something that our community is very interested in. And again, we've gone out to our community for their comments, so I can see everyone actually being involved. Okay. Councillor Holmes.
Just a point of order, Your Worship. I mean, there's lots of discussion here about whether it should be Councillor Jovich or Councillor Cooper. I mean, it seems senseless to me that we're limiting ourselves to 3 people when we've got 2 very well qualified people in the room in Councillor Jovich and Councillor Cooper. I don't know why we're just saying we can't amend this to 4. I know I can't amend an amendment, but it seems to me we're going around the houses. Each of the councillors mentioned bring their own specific and unique set of skills. Why don't we take advantage of those skills rather than limiting ourselves?
So, and I'll answer that question quite clearly. As I said before, and Councillor Olsen raised it up as well, why is there only 3? Councillor Holst made it very clear that having 3 from our council, then you can have 3 from the Kaipara Council, and then you can have 3 from the Far North Council. If you have 4, then you're going to have 4 from all councils. So it is about making sure that you're keeping your group as small and concise as possible so that things can be accessed and moved. Again, I do say, any decision going forward is going to have to come back to full council and involve the full council anyway. Councillor?
Just a question?
Yes.
Can we have an alternate? Just in case someone's absent?
Yep, you can have an alternate.
Then you still got 3?
Yep. An alternate, yep. Okay, so is there any more discussion? Councillor Rooker?
Sorry, just to clarify, Councillor Harding's point. So we look to have an alternate. Does that need to be added in?
That would be a separate amendment.
So if it's a separate amendment...
So the process would be is we would be voting on this amendment.
Yeah.
Then that would become the substantial amendment. Yeah. If another amendment wants to be added at that point there, then it could be.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. Just to clarify so everyone's on the same page.
I asked it was a point of order I made. I'd like to just speak this, if I may.
Yes.
So I'd like to foreshadow an amendment. So I'm going to speak now. So I'm going to vote against this, not because I don't want Councillor Jovich on this, but because I do want Councillor Jovich on there, but I want Councillor Cooper on as well. So, so although I'm going to vote against it, I'm going to, if it fails, I will then foreshadow another motion where I'm going to propose 4 members rather than 3.
Okay. So, no discussion. Okay, we'll now move the amendment. So just to make sure everyone fully understands the full amendment, it's 1 to 9 as listed in your agenda, where number 2 has Councillor Paul Jovich as the 3rd person. All those in favour? A division has been called by Councillor Mackenzie. All those in favour, please raise your right hand.
Councillor Jovich, Councillor Reid, Councillor Olsen, Councillor Golightly, His Worship the Mayor.
Those against?
Councillor Ruka, Councillor Peters, Councillor Mackenzie, Councillor Holmes, Councillor Harding, Councillor Cooper, Councillor Connop.
So the substantial motion goes back to, that's lost to the substantial motion goes back to Councillor Cooper, would be the C.
I'd like to propose an amendment, Your Worship.
Amendment is?
So my amendment is in item 2, the appointed members are A, Your Worship, B, Deputy Mayor, C, Councillor Paul Jovich, D, Councillor Cooper.
4, okay.
I'll withdraw because I do not want to be part of that working group.
Okay. So, unfortunately, if that's your motion, you won't be able to have Councillor Jovich. Okay?
Yep, got it. Okay.
So it's going back to just being the 3. So there was the original motion. Okay. So the original motion is that it's 1 to 9. Is there any other discussions? Councillor Connop.
Just a question on that one as well. Had we gone through with that to add a 4th person in there, have the other councils voted on this? Sorry, I've missed it if it has.
As this is worded, Councillor, you will see quite clearly that we are the initiators to bring the other councils on board. And Andrew has a comment to add to that. I think he's maybe had some discussions with the teams as well.
Just for His Worship, the terms of reference are drafted on the basis of 3 elected members.
You need to use the microphone, sorry, Andrew, very hard to hear.
Apologies. Through the Chair, the terms of reference have been drafted on the basis of 3 elected members, so just noting that if that was to be changed, those terms of reference would have to be updated, and that has been discussed with the CEs of the other councils. I understand the Kaipara District Council has a agenda going tomorrow to its council with 3 elected members.
Yep. Councillor Peters.
Just through you, Your Worship, I'd like to wonder if Councillor Jovich would have accepted if it was an either or for the 3rd person.
A little bit hard to ask a councillor that opinion at this present moment through the council, through the processes that we have, okay? Okay. But Councillor Jovich has made it very clear that he does not want to be on it in this situation where there's 4 people, okay? Okay. You can talk to him later about that if you'd like to, and take that offline.
All right.
Councillor Jovich, you don't have to talk to it, it's okay. So, Councillor Mackenzie.
Right of reply, Your Worship?
Yes, I was just going to come to that if there was, yep, so right, would you like your right of reply, Councillor Mackenzie?
Thank you, yes I would.
Okay.
Sorry, I didn't mean for this to create division or any kind of debate of this nature. I just thought that Ken would do a good job on this. And I did, just to note, highlight this to the Deputy Mayor, let him know of that, and apologies if that didn't filter back through to you, Vince. Thank you.
Okay. Right, the right of reply has been had. All those in favour? Division's been called by Councillor Reid. All those in favour?
Councillor Ruka, Councillor Peters, Councillor Mackenzie, Councillor Holmes, Councillor Harding, Councillor Cooper, Councillor Connop.
Those against?
Councillor Jovich, Councillor Reid, Councillor Olsen, Councillor Golightly.
And those abstaining?
His Worship the Mayor. It's carried.
Carried. Thank you, councillors. We'll now move on to item 7.4, which is on page 117. This is the Trium Local Government Elections Order of candidates' names. I will move that the council adopts the alphabetical order of candidates' names on voting documents for the 2025 Trium Local Government Election in accordance with Regulation 31 of the Electoral Regulations 2001. And Councillor Reid's got his hand up there to second that. Sorry, Councillor Golightly. Councillor Reid was a little quicker. Councillors, again, look, as stated previously, this is quite a normal process that we've gone through. You can read the agenda item quite clearly. We've had the alphabetical order. We've got a wide range of elected members within our council. Alphabetical does not make any difference to anything else, and if anything, it makes it easier for our community to be able to go through things. And one of the things I love about elections is to make things as easy as possible for people to be able to understand and follow. Do I have any other discussions? No other discussions?
Is it true, Your Worship, you'll be changing your name to Adam Aardvark?
Inappropriate question, Councillor. I don't think that requires an answer. As there's no other discussion, all those in favour? Any opposed? Carried. Thank you, councillors. We'll now move on to page 121, which is 7.5, which is the notice of motion of Councillor Mackenzie. Now, Councillor Mackenzie, I understand there is an alternative that you've put in?
Yeah, there's a supplementary agenda, Your Worship.
Yep. Just bringing
so it's 7.5.1.
7.5.1, that's correct.
And I'll just read the recommendation if that's...
Just 1 second. I just need to make sure this... Yes, so Councillor Mackenzie, read your notice of motion. Yep.
Thank you, Your Worship. That the Council, 1, acknowledges that an accessible ramp was not included in the original scope of the Whangarei seawall construction project. 2, notes that a design and cost estimate for the ramp has been prepared by staff with an estimated cost of $75,000. 3, requests staff to prepare a report with options for including the accessible ramp during the current project works and return to Council for a decision at the Council meeting on the 22nd of May.
Thank you, Councillor. Do we have a seconder for that? Councillor Connop, you're seconding that, is that right? Councillor Mackenzie, you'd like to speak to that?
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. I think it's stated in the paper. This, I believe, is an unfortunate omission made during a design and consultation process where you have a large new seawall being built, several sets of stairs to allow the public down to the water, but no inclusion of an accessible ramp which would allow our disabled community access to the water. And it was consulted on, and there were submissions made in support of the ramp. They were obviously not picked up. And so I have been working with staff and SLT for since late January on this, trying to find a way of working collaboratively and getting this in there, and unfortunately that path has come to somewhat of a dead end. And despite there having been a design, an estimated cost put to this, and a suggestion that it could be brought back to council, that suggestion was then revoked, and I was told that it just couldn't happen. So I normally like working collaboratively with staff. This is the first notice of motion that I've ever brought in this term. It's not something that I do lightly, and but I found no alternative. So I think what I'm asking is pretty reasonable. It's to look at the options and bring them back for council to whether they want to approve variation to the contract and include a ramp within the current construction period. I do note that the wall is being built quite quickly, and the area where the ramp would be is fast being approached by the diggers that are placing the rocks. So I would urge staff, if this motion passes, to get on with the work. Thank you, Your Worship.
Okay. Councillor Olsen, you've got a... Yep.
Yes, thank you. Question. So just for clarification, this ramp was included in the original document, and it's been left out. I'd like to know why it was left out. Secondly, you know, we've got a note here, the design cost estimate of $75,000. We have no concrete budget, quote for that. So that could quite easily blow out, as we know happens.
So back to your question.
So the question is, how many times does it take to get these things right? You know, it was originally mooted.
Councillor, Councillor, I understand where you're coming from here. You need to be able to get your questions quite succinct. You started asking a question, then you started making... Okay, that's your question is that... Jim, I'm unsure this is a question that you can technically answer. There was a question there before that Councillor Olsen had. However, unfortunately, you're right, I don't think you could be able to answer this. Jim?
Through the chair, I can give it my best shot.
Okay.
So the Whangarei seawall is a renewals project, and essentially the projects that we do on our coastal environment are replacing...
Councillors, while the staff member is giving an answer, please respect that. Jim?
So the replacement of like with like is what was agreed in the scheme design. So the scheme design that's on the website, when I have consultation, it didn't include a disability access ramp. I think one of the things that I'll acknowledge is that in June last year, Council adopted the Regional Accessibility Strategy. And as part of that accessibility strategy, one of the aims is that everyone can access popular beaches, and it sets that kind of direction for providing access to popular beaches. We don't currently have the funding, so when it came to the long-term plan, the funding for the implementation wasn't included as part of the LTP, and that's one of the reasons why that hasn't been progressed to the level it has. So I think that's something that needs to be addressed in terms of getting it right, is making sure that we have the right level of service funding associated with renewals, and that we've got clear implementation plan, as was agreed in the council resolution, about how we're going to provide access to popular beaches.
Okay. Thank you, Jim, for attempting to answer that. Thank you very much. Councillor Harding.
Thank you, Te Kora Matua. So it's just a question. So it's not for boat ramp. It's just for, it's accessible just for personnel. I thought I read somewhere that there's a ramp 2 kilometres away.
Correct.
Was that correct?
That was under the background that Councillor Mackenzie brought through.
But is that a boat ramp, more or less?
Through the chair, so it's there is an alternative ramp that exists. I don't believe it meets the design criteria for full disability access.
Okay.
The concept that the team looked at was to try and get something around the location of the crossing point. There is actually an alternative location where at the southern end where there's more parking access.
Right.
That might be another consideration. So again, depending on council's decision on this notice of motion, that's something that the team can look at and come back with something for the next council meeting.
So, but that works is something different, isn't it? That'll be different from this one. Renewal.
No, it's so the notice of motion is to provide an accessibility ramp.
Yes.
The initial work that we looked at was to see if we could provide something where there's a pedestrian crossing in the centre, but there is an alternative location at the southern end which might also be of benefit and could potentially align with more parking opportunities and align more with what is needed for full disability access and meeting the design standards.
Okay.
Councillor Reid.
Thank you, Your Worship. In a rushed fashion, I have asked staff through Jim to do some more homework on this. Unfortunately, I was taken by surprise when I didn't know of this motion until it came through in the papers, which is kind of unfortunate because I could have saved quite a bit of time, I think. I have since asked the project manager through Jim to do some investigation, and we could be looking at a contract increase of in excess of 200 to around about 225,000, 75k of which is for the ramp. I have no real opposition to putting in the disability ramp, but as Chair of Infrastructure, I feel that I do have to be a little bit more fiscally responsible so that I don't get my ears rubbed by our Chair of Finance. And to that end, we are doing more investigations, which is costing us through the project manager. to firm up prices to have it put where Councillor Mackenzie would like to see it, and where we can possibly take out a set of steps further down the road and put the ramp in their place, which I think would probably look quite enhancing compared to what is there and what is mooted. A bonus to it is there is a retirement home across the road, so I would envisage them crossing the road and using it rather than going 2 kilometres down the road, or some distance. I should be a little bit less specific on distance, I suppose. And there is the advantage of parking in that vicinity of those steps that we would look at replacing with the ramp. So I'm kind of sitting on the fence here with this one until I get accurate costings back from our project manager. So, you know, it's just a let's wait and see. Sometimes we don't get exactly what we want where we want it, but we do get what we want in an alternative site. So I'll leave it at that for now. Thank you.
Councillor Olsen.
Thank you. So I'm going to come at this from a disability point of view. And I just ask that should this ramp go ahead, this is the first thing, should the ramp go ahead, has the decline or the steepness of that ramp been taken into account? Yes, I don't know, I haven't seen anything.
So that's a question to be asked of the team.
Yep.
So basically, if you notice there, it's quite clearly within Councillor Mackenzie's motion says an accessible ramp. Therefore, as soon as it says an accessible ramp, it is required to meet the accessible standards.
Yeah, but it doesn't always.
No, Councillor. Quite clearly, it says in their accessible ramp, so it must meet the accessible standards.
So the next question is, could this motion be laid on the table until we have some figures?
I believe the recommendation that has in front of us is actually asking for those figures. So it's a bit hard to say lay something on the table without actually, because the request is coming through as staff to prepare a report with options, including accessible ramp for costs. So
there's a huge discrepancy between 75 and 200.
Actually, Councillor, just to highlight what's been stated in here is, again, we're going by the notice of motion. One of the problems with notice of motions, you must go by what's actually written down. And what's actually written down is it's referring to a design and cost. It's not referring to the construction cost. Within the request for prepare a report, we'll come back with construction costs and all that side of things. Unfortunately, it's not stated in there. One of the things that's also not stated in the notice of motion is the location. So that is why this is quite an open-ended notice of motion, the way it's written. So I need to just clarify with Jim before I move on to Councillor Connop. Are you able to achieve the next agenda on the 22nd of May? Are you able to achieve the report by then?
Through the chair,
Before then?
That's what the team's working on. The council papers need to be complete by the end of next week to meet that deadline, but that's what we need to achieve it in order to keep things progressing. So yeah, we have to meet that deadline. What I would say is that there will be a couple of risks identified in that paper. We need to confirm consent requirements, and we also need to work with the contractor to get a variation, an estimate what that cost will be, so that, to Councillor Olsen's point, that we're not just working with an estimate, we're actually working with a realistic figure.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Connop.
Thank you very much. If we all were in wheelchairs, this would be a no-brainer. It would be straight out. We would all say, yep, we need this, let's do it. As it is, we're not. Those who are in the greatest need cannot access some of our most fantastic beaches, some of our most great areas that we as accessible people can, and some areas they will never be able to get to for various reasons. To ensure that we can make equitable some of those beaches, some of those areas such as this that allows people of even accessible people who have no accessibility needs, it benefits. It allows them to maybe take their children in a little trolley down to the water or to the beach, whatever. Realistically, it should have been included up at the beginning of this whole thing, but I support where it's come to at this stage. It is open-ended as to prepare a report to be able to bring back to us, so the comments around Councillor Reid about where it could be would be taken into account, I would hope, and that way we will get the best possible location for this suited. One last thing is just highlights on our renewals and our renewal process. Like for like really hinders us so much. Sometimes it's absolutely fine to go like for like, but it hinders improvements into areas. If you do not improve it, you will then have an added cost of removing the then upgraded potential with a smaller cost of actually the upgrade. So it realistically is, when we have a like for like, we need to ensure we're exploring other options at the same time.
Thank you, Councillor Holmes.
Thank you, Bishop. Just a very brief one to me. I mean, it appears to be a genuine oversight in the planning process, and this is, I believe, this is an equity issue around accessibility, and all we're asking staff to do is explore the possibilities and come back. So I support this. I think we have to make the like for like is an issue. You know, if it wasn't accessible before, then clearly it should have been accessible going forward. So I do think that's just an oversight on our part. We do need to review our processes. But it is what it is now. So I think we just need to, I don't think there's much to discuss on this. All we're asking staff to do is explore and report back options. So I would support this.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Holmes. Councillor McKenzie, you'd like your right of reply, I'm guessing?
Yes, thank you, Worship. Thanks, everyone, for the discussion. I appreciate all of the thoughts that have been had here. It's not strictly like for like. There have been changes. The walls are different design and the stairs are in different places. There have been, there's been rationalisation that's taken place. So I don't think that the inclusion of an accessible ramp was actually prohibited or inhibited by the term like for like. It could have been done, it just wasn't. I'd just like to draw attention to Lauren Hope's letter and the supporting document in the notice of motion. Lauren has advocated strongly for this, and she has made the point that disabled people in wheelchairs, they want to have the ability to access the water. They want to swim. And to do that, you need to get into the water. So the current accessible ramp down past the school leads you to a mud flat. So if you go down there in your wheelchair, you just reach mud. So the idea would be to have a ramp that zigzags down and then goes out perpendicular to allow people in wheelchairs to actually swim and access the water, and that's the whole idea. I have not specified a location in any way, shape or form. I don't think it's my place to prescribe that. I think it's my place to express the views that I'm hearing from the community and advocate on their behalf, and that's what I'm doing today, Your Worship. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor McKenzie. Right, a reply has been had. All those in favour? Any opposed? Carried. And Councillor Reid and Councillor Jovich, you're abstaining. Would you like that recorded? Yep. Appreciate that, councillors. It's been recorded as that. We'll now move on to item 7.6. I have which is on page 125. I have a alternative motion to this, which hopefully the team will have up on the screen for me. 126. However, we've got an alternative motion, which I'm putting up on the screen right at the moment. Nice and big, hopefully for everyone to read. I will now read it out so everyone's got a clear indication of it. That Council 1 receives and notes the International Rally of Whangarei 2025 funding update. 2. approves the allocation of $11,000 from the 2025-26 mayoral in-kind budget, including within the draft 2025-26 annual plan, to support the International Rally of Whangarei event in the 25-26 financial year. 3. Notes that under Section 80 of the Local Government Act 2002, if Council makes a decision which is significantly inconsistent with policy, it is required when making that decision to clearly identify, 1, the inconsistency and the reason for the inconsistency, and any intention of the local authority to amend the policy or plan to accommodate the decision. 4. Acknowledges that the use of the community fund for the Rally of Whangarei 2025 would be inconsistent with the community funding policy in that A. There has been no application to the fund. B. There has been no competitive process. C. It is inconsistent with the funding application criteria and processes. D. Is inconsistent with the eligibility criteria for the community fund. 5. Approves the use of funds in a manner significantly inconsistent with the community funding policy on the grounds that A. The Rally of Whangarei event has an estimated economic benefit to the region of $2,525,704. B. If funding is not approved, the event may not occur in the district in 2025-26 financial year and may not return to the district in future years. C. The Community Development Committee may, in rare circumstances, support applications and organisations outside the criteria in the Community Fund policy where there is clear community benefit and outweighs any negative impact of going outside of the policy, while continuing to use ratepayer funds responsibly. D. There is no intention to amend the current community funding policy. 6. Approves the budget allocation of $52,000 from the 2025-26 Community Fund budget, including within the draft 2025-26 annual plan, to provide a grant to the International Rally of Whangarei event in the 2025-26 financial year. 7. Notes that the $52,000 budget reallocation from the 2025-26 community funds budget to events grants will be adjusted within the final 2025-26 annual plan budget. 8. Requires that Rally of Whangarei Rally New Zealand must, as a condition of receipt of the funds, be required to A. Acknowledge the Whangarei District Council in all publicity. B. Return any unspent funds to Whangarei District Council if the project is cancelled or completed under budget. C. Meet any additional terms and conditions that may be set by Whangarei District Council. 9. Delegates the Chief Executive responsibility for negotiating suitable terms of funding with Rally New Zealand. 10. Acknowledges that a decision made outside policy where the requirements in Section 80 have not been satisfied exposes Council to possibly challenge on the grounds of unreasonable decision-making, judicial review, or possible audit issues and an audit general investigation. Councillor Reid is seconding that. So, councillors, I will now speak to that. Now, I do need to acknowledge, firstly, that the work that the team have actually already done in relation to the International Rally of Whangarei, you will quite clearly see during the agenda item what the costs have roughly been over the last, since 2020 through to 2025. Last year, there was a significant reduction in the costs, which actually affected a lot of the aspects of the rally. And to make the rally actually work, they need the whole $63,000 to make it work properly. It was a situation where we were cutting budgets back in the long-term plan, and it was one of those aspects that was highlighted to us that this may be one of the events that are affected. We also have other events which are planned, and at this present moment, we don't know if they're going to be happening or not, and if they're not happening, then that funding will come back into our council budgets as well. So while there are events being put into the long-term plan, some of those events may not happen, so it may actually provide funds that way. The important aspect about this, and I will, if I had Councillor Hulse here, I know full well that he will remember a report that we had a few years back where we had the International Rally of Whangarei and we had a funding account come back and show actually the financial benefits of Whangarei. That report was actually saying in the close to $5 million. So when we have an international rally in Whangarei, the pure publicity of the event is huge for Whangarei. One of the comments that came back to me from some of the Invercargill race drivers and supporters was, we love Whangarei, how do we move up here? So this is the type of effects that we are having to those in the rally industry. We provide roads which are great for them to use. We provide a inner city circuit which is unlike any other around New Zealand, where people, our community, can actually sit on the banks and watch and be up close with the rally cars and where they can't normally do that. There has been many changes done with the International Rally. The rally was typically done during March, April time, and it got moved to later in the year. So with this rally being moved later in the year, that's why it's not affecting this year's budget, it's next year's budget, as it goes from July onwards. Councillors, that's why we're moving that. As I said, I fully acknowledge everything that's in there within the agenda item which talks about the International Rally of Whangarei, all the different slides that you can see there. There is so much that Whangarei has actually won off this. When this rally was originally put in Whangarei, which was back in 2007, 2006, it was an amazing event which has just grown step by step by step. Over the years, they have lost key sponsors, and that is the reason why Whangarei needs to provide this funding to be able to ascertain the extra money that's coming back into our district. I will have moved that. I've got seconded, and I have some speakers. Councillor Cooper.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. Like you, I note the agenda body, the background to this, which is, I believe, covers most of it or all of it. There was money taken out at the beginning of the year because we were trying to cut costs. However, anything that brings economic growth to the city has to be looked at very carefully. It gives us exposure, and it brings in people to our city and they spend money in our city, and I think anything that does that probably should be supported. I guess, though, we do set our budgets for a reason, so on this one I'm going to be guided by our Chair of Finance, and I'll go with him. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cooper. Councillor Holmes.
Thank you, Your Worship. So just a question first, if I may. So again, this might just be me being a bit dim, and I apologise in advance. So the 52,000 reallocation, if we reallocate that money to the rally, what's the impact on the overall fund in terms of the wider community, in terms of their ability to apply for funds? Are we able to? I mean, clearly there's 52,000 that's not there for the community, so that's an obvious. But I mean, what are the implications in terms of the number of organisations we could potentially fund if we?
So we'll go back to Victoria. She may be able to answer that question.
Through the chair, I think, well, it would be difficult to say how many organisations because we don't know what their applications would be. Cindy probably would have a better idea about what that might look like, but it does reduce, like you say, the community funding down by 52,000. So there's less opportunity for the community.
Yeah, may I speak to it?
Yep.
Your Worship, thank you. Sorry, it was motherhood and apple pie. I just wanted to make sure I was getting this right. So again, look, I'm torn on this because, as you know, Your Worship, I mean, I was brought up in a motoring, competitive motoring family, so I love nothing more than the smell of petrol and burning tyres. But I've got to say, I am unconvinced by the potential for economic benefit in the papers that we're being given. I've been around organisations long enough to know that you can massage the figures, and I'm not saying it's done deliberately, just the way it is, to come out with a favourable outcome. It's not difficult. So to be honest, I just don't buy the numbers being floated in terms of economic benefit. yes, it's great to have the rally here. It's colourful, it's a great spectator event. It certainly raises our profile on an international stage. I just don't buy the benefits that are being touted. And I certainly don't buy the fact that this puts Whangarei on the map as a place where the motorsports industry wants to move to and be based. I mean, I just don't believe it at all. And I think, moreover, my real concern is the impact on other smaller organisations, community organisations that have no other funding source, nowhere else to go, and the impact on them to satisfy a bunch of petrol heads. I can't support it, I'm afraid.
Thank you. Councillor Gola.
Thank you, Your Worship. I've just got a question. Has Rally New Zealand agreed to the conditions in number 8 there? I think it's number 8, yes.
Yeah, so just to make it very clear that those are very standard conditions that we actually put on all of our applications when people ask for grants. It's not done on everything. However, with the rally stuff, that is pretty stock standard, which we have done many, many times. Victoria, you'll just clarify that? Yep, she's nodding away, clarifying that. That's exactly right. So we have in the past, that is what we've always said to them. There might be other things that we might add. However, I don't think there was anything last time, was there, Victoria?
So through the chair, we would draw up a contract with them, and we'd just assess what those conditions might be when we have a discussion with them. Yeah, but it'd be very standard, the same probably as last year.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Garlick. Councillor Connor.
Question first, please.
Yep.
Page 151 for one of the locations that it's put. The small print at the bottom of the page. It states, figures sourced from average domestic spend, regional tourism indicators, MBIE, Ministry of Business, Innovation, Employment, Domestic.
I'm sorry, Councillor, can you use your microphone?
I'm trying to, but I'm trying to read the small print too. Figures sourced from average domestic spend, regional tourism indicators, Ministry of Business, Innovation and Employment, domestic traveller expenditure figures. But the point that I want to question is the December 2013 to 2019. 2013 to 2019. Are these an accurate part to go by, considering right now that is pre-COVID and we are in a post-COVID time? These figures would be inaccurate for what we actually would be facing right now, and appreciate the commentary about the potential of the $5 million, which is different.
Yeah, so that's a good question. I'm going to pose it back to Victoria, and Victoria's going to say Cindy, or B. I can see that straight away. Before they answer, I do need to clarify. It is quite clearly, this is from 2013 to 2019, and this is actually a standardised database that they actually use for the area. B will actually explain it a bit further in that.
Sorry, through the chair. MB's standards are still based on 2013 to 2019. They're currently being adjusted this year as we speak to be reviewed, now that we're fully out of what's called post-COVID, but we can only base them on what MB puts forward at this time, which is those stats.
MB.
Thank you. You want to speak to it? Or?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Yeah. I just want to use that as a highlight as well, as there are other things that happen around the district that have been impacted by the issues that COVID threw at us, whichever your opinion is, we have to face it, that we're not getting the backlash for this space. That's the end of that part. I have an issue with this because it is significantly inconsistent with the way that we have done it. I agree that the well-being of events are astronomically high, especially for people who enjoy those particular events. And I don't want to take away from that. And I have an issue also with the fact that whilst we are attempting to be financially fiscal in some spaces, throwing this extra money onto this is an extra cost, which if spread over multiple events, as we've had shown with the Matariki events, where the events were spread much farther over smaller events, we were able to gain a lot more traction in that type of a space. Well-being for the environment is not taken into account here. Whilst it's being worked on and there are benefits that are coming with technology, the impact of the environment is a negative. There are those who are only impacted by this and they don't actually have a benefit either. The noise, the environmental pollution, there are people that will benefit from this also, but there are people who just will outright refuse the support of this. This is for an event over a single weekend. I'd just like to also highlight a space where if we put funding into our freedom camping spaces, our environmental ability to look after the whole district, it would be a much longer lasting effectiveness, especially for the fact that a lot of people who are freedom camping are environmental type people. Yes, there will always be bad eggs in some freedom camping, just as we have bad eggs in residence, etc. You will never get 100% everything over everything. I can't support this as it is.
Okay. Councillor Harding.
Well, thank you, Te Koro Matua. I just wanted to ask the team, Hiana Kia Kaurua, the rally has taken place for 17 years. Have they, do you know, maybe Te Koro Matua knows, have they come to the council every year for funding, to contribute funding?
Yeah, through the chair, yes, they have.
Okay, and then, you know, kind of through venue and events, and through the LTP, there's obviously a planning approach to how many events you can do each year. And I know, you know, spontaneous ones comes up around whether you get the All Blacks or, you know, Black Ferns, etc., Warriors. But you wouldn't really set aside Pūtea specifically for the rally as an identified event. Would that be right?
So through the chair, yes, it was put aside for an identified event in past years.
Yes.
But as the agenda item mentions, through the long-term plan, it was seen as a way to save some operating funds, and so it was removed. And that was one of the risks of removing it, that we wouldn't be able to support the rally in future years, hence the position that we're now in.
And other like events are in the same position, is that right?
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah. But specifically, the rally would be not budgeted for next...
For next year, yeah.
Yeah, for next year. Okay, thank you, Kara.
Councillor Peters.
I'm in support of you using the mayoral fund in the way you have, or if proposed, sorry, proposed. I do have a problem with the reallocation of funding from the general fund when it specifically has been excluded, and that I do note with other organisations our policy is that we don't we don't fund them forever. This is a large amount of money from the fund, and it hasn't been allowed for. So I do have a bit of an issue with that. So, yeah, thank you.
Councillor McKenzie.
I have a question in relation to the current allocation of the community fund. How much money is left in that fund, and could, if there's any left in this financial year, it be used rather than taking money from next year's fund? Because I assume there's no carry forward, is there?
That is correct, Councillor. There is no carry forward.
So you may as well use it while it's there, if there is some.
Yeah, so that is a question that was asked to the team, and I believe Cindy's probably the best one to answer that.
Through the chair, I'm just doing the May recommendations, and we've had $140,000 worth. So for June, that would leave $133,000, which could easily go. Yep.
Okay.
Okay, there goes my idea, thank you.
Councillor Reid.
Thank you, Worship. I'm a bit of a petrol head myself. That's burnt all my hair out over the years, but that's a story for another day. This has got to be one of the better social events that we have. This brings people from overseas. I know myself, you go to Bathurst, you don't turn up for Friday, Saturday, you're there from Thursday, you go home Monday. You know, there's a big span of money to be drawn into the town, and it's not just the financial gain for accommodation services and cafes and bars and clubs and all manner of shops that we've got right through the district. It's more than that. There's the social aspect. People mixing together, you know, that you normally wouldn't meet. Patrick, it will have happened for you at events you've been to.
Anyway.
Just, you know, it's a great camaraderie, motor racing, and so's rugby, so's league, so's many other sports. This is just another one of those aspects that we can garner income for our businesses through our town. International wise, this is on TV around the world. The Masters games at the hockey, probably not quite so much. People will see this in Sweden, Norway, you name it. Where there's a rally, there's people who will be watching this. And I just hark back to the community fund. I don't want to take away from the district either, but I do want to add value to what we've got. And I know that if we don't keep this rally here, it will end up in Kairoa. And they've got far worse roads up there, they tell us, so there'll be far more fun. So we don't want them to get all the glory. We want it down here. And if we have a miscue with one of our other funding options that we've got, like the Warriors, if they don't turn up, there's quite a pile of money there. We could replace this money that we're taking out of this community fund. So, yeah, I'm kind of in favour of this. Thank you.
Councillor Mackenzie, you're speaking to it?
No, question, Your Worship. I'm just curious, if there's such great global exposure and it's such a massive event, why are the sponsors dropping off? Like, surely they'd see it as an opportunity to make some money out of this.
And that's a very good question, and I can tell you that one of the sponsors who was a major key sponsor in it was Mark Cromie Holden, and of course he sold his practice. So they have quite comfortably reapproached a lot of those motor vehicle places, and again, we don't know how those discussions are going because that's not part of council.
Well, we should wait until we hear back, you'd think, before we jump in and say, oh, we'll pay for it.
Council, we've been specifically asked, and this is to keep it as with the naming rights of the International Rally of Whangarei.
Naming rights, okay. So we're paying $50,000 for naming rights.
Great.
Right.
Councillor Ruka.
Thank you, Worship. I agree that the event is beneficial for the town. I'm much like Councillor Holmes. I'm not completely convinced on the I guess the numbers in terms of the turnaround, but I do believe it is a good thing for the town. Any event, I will support most events, especially international ones. My only real concern is like how our public will kind of see this, you know, will especially with the reallocation of community funds, and then just looking at the agenda item itself, you can see there's some real serious ring jumping happening to make this happen in terms of, you know, just in terms of being able to make this community fund available in this manner. You can see there's some genuine rings that are having to be jumped through to make this available for this thing. So I'm worried really about public perception on making this available in this way, how it kind of looks in terms of spending money this way. So more public perception. I do agree that the event is a good one for the town. My major concern is public public perception of it being used in this way and being delegated this way in terms of the funding. But so still support, but with that in mind. Thank you, Worship.
Councillor Olsen.
Thank you, Your Worship. I too am a little bit undecided on this, because if we allocate this money from this fund, then someone's got to suffer. That's just inevitable, isn't it? The figures, that remains to be seen. Can I just ask that there was, and I'm trying to find it in the agenda, where if the money isn't spent, it's given back. Could I have it? Yeah, could I have it noted that I'm in agreement in principle to the motion, providing that happens, and will it happen?
Well, it's actually
if there's money.
It's actually stated in there, so that it must be followed.
And yeah, I'll just leave it at that for now.
No other discussions? Councillor Peters.
Could we
You've spoken. Did you want to?
No, it's a question.
Question.
Could we take this in parts, please?
It's a little hard to take this one in parts.
There are two parts.
No, there's not, Councillor.
Well, there's the part of the mayoral fund and there's the part of the general fund.
Yeah, the whole agenda is to do with the, apart from one section in there which deals with item 2, which deals with the mayoral fund, the rest of the project all deals with that other item, the other fund. So you can't really take it in parts on that one, I'm sorry.
So I would like number 2 taken in parts.
Okay, fine. Councillor Olsen?
Yes, just one last question. So we've heard that, that the rally people are looking at alternative funding from other organisations. So just for clarity's sake, we can't wait until we know that before we decide on this. That's correct, isn't it?
The question is have they given us a time frame? Yes, they've given us a very clear indication that they need an answer before the end of June. I think B or Victoria might be able to answer that slightly better, but that's what the indication I was given.
Yeah, so through the chair, July at the latest, they would want to know by.
July, what is it?
Councillor Mackenzie, you got another question, or you?
Can I move a procedural motion to lay it on the table until July, or just prior to July?
Councillor, we actually have to make the decision today whether we're going to do it or not, and unfortunately...
Just said that they need it by July.
No, they need to have all their stuff booked out so that they've got their funding organised by July.
It's not my interpretation of what staff just said, Your Worship.
No.
Okay, well, as someone who has actually been talking to the rally and can actually say to you they actually need an answer this month or next month, that is it.
Can I just clarify that again with the staff, assuming they've been liaising directly as well?
Yep.
When do the rally, the Whangarei rally, need to know that whether they have the funding allocated from Whangarei District Council or not?
Rally New Zealand, when do they need the fund? When do they officially need it? From your side, Victoria?
Yep, through the chair, they would need a signed contract by July.
Therefore, I propose a procedural motion to lay this on the table until June, pending their outreach for sponsorship opportunities to avoid us having to pay for it.
Do we have a seconder for the procedural motion? Councillor Holmes seconds that. Yep. We'll now vote on that. A division's been called by Councillor Cooper. All those in favour for the motion to be laid on the table?
Councillor Peters, Councillor Mackenzie, Councillor Holmes, Councillor Harding, Councillor Connop.
Those against?
Councillor Jovich, Councillor Reid, Councillor Golightly and Cooper and His Worship the Mayor. Councillor Olsen is abstaining. Councillor Ruka is abstaining. It's a tie.
5 each.
Casting vote, okay, we're going to have to proceed with it, so we'll take it with the procedural motion has been lost. We'll now do the right of reply, and then we can vote on that. So what I'm going to say here is you've all raised some very interesting discussion points. I need to highlight that being involved with the rally for such a long time, I've seen a lot of stuff behind the scenes of the rally, and I've seen the flow-on effects that it's actually have. The amount of community groups, local community groups that actually get involved, and the amount of community groups that actually make something of it for themselves, like the Lions clubs, the Rotary clubs, the Hikarangi Community Association. They actually book out the whole of Hikarangi, and they have that as a fuel park. So there's a whole pile of our community groups which are actually clearly get involved in this. When someone talked about the single weekend, the amount of time that's involved in this setting up of a rally like this is about a month. So you have people staying in the district for about a month beforehand, going through all the aspects, going through all the roads, checking all the roads. So it's not a single weekend. The flow-on effects of the accommodation is horrendous, and it's more than 2 days. It is literally, from the rally side of things, they start turning up here a week in advance of the rally. Some of them which come from overseas, they have to prepare and plan. And this is all about preparing and planning for an event to actually be able to happen so that we can give them clear guidance that we're actually in support of what they're doing. There was a comment made about the public perception. I understand totally what that was highlighted on. When you actually look at the amount of money that this brings into the district, and it's highlighted quite clearly, you know, how do we rely on those figures? Last year was a prime example of that. I saw more people from outside of our district coming in than I have ever seen for a long, long time. They were coming up specifically for Whangarei to support Whangarei and to support the rally because of what Whangarei has been through with the storms. So keeping the name of the International Rally of Whangarei on the event, to me, is a really important thing, because that actually secures Whangarei as a real destination. Many people may shake their heads, or they may turn around and say, no, it's not possible. It actually is. Since the rally's conception and actually been used in Whangarei, it has made major advancements when it comes to Whangarei for promotion. The promotion stuff has actually been used in Northland Inc. for advertising. It's been used by the Kaipara District Council for advertising. It's been used by the Far North District Council for advertising. It's even been used by our council for advertising. One of the big things about the policy processes that was actually clearly stated in there, why this is different to the policy, is because the Rally of New Zealand is not a local resident. That's why they don't comply with the policy. So that's why it's different, and that's why we've got to go outside the policy. So that's why they can't ask for funding from Whangarei. Now, so many things this district benefit from is unbelievable when it comes to this rally. And from this rally, I can tell you now, we've received events like at the stadium because of this rally. We've received events at hockey because of this rally. It set the scene to what Whangarei was able to achieve and actually able to do for the district and for the region. So that's the right of reply. Division has been called. All those in favour, please raise your right hand.
We're taking it parts, Your Worship.
Question for parts. The only part that can be taken is part 2, because it's the only part. The rest is all one motion. I'm sorry. It's, yeah. 1 and 2, and then the 3 and the rest. Okay. So all taking parts. All those in favour of 1 and 2.
Councillor Jovic, Councillor Ruka, Councillor Reid, Councillor Peters, Councillor Olsen, Councillor Mackenzie, Councillor Holmes, Councillor Harding, Councillor Golightly, Councillor Cooper, and His Worship the Mayor.
Those against?
Councillor Connip.
Okay. Now we'll take the second part, which is 3 all the way through to 10. All those in favour, please raise your right hand.
Councillor Jovic, Councillor Ruka, Councillor Reid, Councillor Olsen, Councillor Golightly, Councillor Cooper, His Worship the Mayor,
Those against?
Councillor Mackenzie, Councillor Holmes and Councillor Connop,
Those abstaining?
Councillor Peters and Councillor Harding.
Carried.
Carried.
Carried. Thank you, councillors. We'll now move on to item 7.7, which is on page 157, sale of Parks land to KiwiRail. Do I have a mover for that? Councillor Reid, would you like to move that? Councillor Cooper, you're seconding that? Oh, sorry, Ken would like to move that.
I'm happy to move it, Your Worship.
And Councillor Reid is seconding that. Right. Councillor Cooper, would you like to read that?
Thank you. Your Worship, page 157, did you say, is it? That's
157, that's correct.
Right. I wish to move that the Council 1 agree to the partial sale of land designated for cemetery in Ruakaka to KiwiRail, agree to the sale price of $58,256, gives Council Chief Executive or Council Officer with the delegated authority permission to execute legal documents for the partial sale of the required land to KiwiRail.
Right. Would you like to speak to it?
Thank you very much, Your Worship. This is something that's been going on for a long, long time. The cemetery has been associated and the generosity of one of the, what you might call the elder families of Ruakaka, and there is a great desire by the people out there to get this project moving forward, and it is our hope that this will ease the way for the council staff to then get in there and create the cemetery so that people can look forward to resting in peace.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Harding.
Aroha mai, just a clarification. And looking at the mapping, doesn't it, I thought it showed that KiwiRail want to buy that site, whether the Ruakaka Cemetery was going to be, in exchange for another site, which is unsuitable. But they're still going to sell it to KiwiRail anyway. So where's the Ruakaka Cemetery new site going to be?
That's the question asked to Jim. Jim, where is the new site?
Where's it going to be, Jim?
Yeah, through the chair. So, so the cemetery is going to be on the land that's identified for the cemetery. KiwiRail are simply looking to purchase the bottom corner of that site, which is actually in a low-lying area, so it's no good for burials. So it's land that we wouldn't be able to use for cemetery. So yes, so taking the money is a good option. And also, KiwiRail have offered some land that we can dispose of soil as part of the development as well. So yeah, the cemetery stays where the cemetery is meant to be.
Oh yeah, my bad. I thought it was taking the whole site.
Good. Not a problem. Good question. Good clarification question. Any other questions or comments? No other questions or comments. Councillor Cooper, would you like to write a reply? The reply has been had. All those in favour? Any opposed? Carried. Thank you, councillors. We'll now move on to 7.8, which is on page 161. Councillor Cooper, you'd like to move this again?
Yes, I would. Thank you, Your Worship.
And Councillor Reid has definitely got his hand up there. Councillor Peters.
Happy for me to read it out, Your Worship.
Yes, please.
That the Council 1 resolves to give public notice in accordance with Section 119 of the Reserved Act 1977 of the intention to grant a lease to the Ruakaka Volunteer Lifeguard Service pursuant to Section 54(1)(b) of the Reserves Act 1977 for an area of the Ruakaka Beach Recreation Reserve for a term of 30 years, and A, in accordance with Section 120 of the Reserves Act 1977, invites any interested person or persons to make written objections and submissions on the proposal. 2, notes that should any person who make a submission or objection who wish to do so may request an opportunity to speak their objection or submission in person. 3, delegates the Infrastructure Committee responsibility for the hearing of persons requesting to make a verbal presentation on the proposed lease.
Right. To speak to it?
Thank you very much. Firstly, the Ruakaka Surf Lifesaving Patrol is an integral part of the community, has been for a long time, and obviously serves a really crucial need out there. As well as that, they were instrumental in training the Bailey's Beach Surf Club, which is the newest surf club in the country, and to get their members up and trained, they used to go across to Ruakaka Surf Club where they were welcomed before their own facilities and before they had enough expertise to open their own surf club. So it's well integrated in the community. The community does get a chance to make submissions on this, and I think we should absolutely support this recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Cooper. Any comments, questions? No comments or questions. Councillor Harding.
Thank you. Sorry, just in clarification. The new lease site, or where they want to build, doesn't go out over the dunes, does it? It just stays with its current footprint?
This is a question to the staff, not to you, Councillor Cooper.
Yes, just through the chair. No, it's at the rear of the current building, so it's back towards the housing rather than out onto the dunes.
Awesome, thank you.
Councillor Connor.
I just wanted to highlight the very last page of this of that agenda item where it says there's power in designing architecture that reflects its people in place, which kind of shows in other spaces that we've had agenda items today as well. So,
okay, cool. Thank you. Is it no other comments? Councillor Cooper, would you like a right of reply? Right of reply has been had. All those in favour? Any opposed? Carried. Thank you, councillors. We'll now move on to item 7.9, which is on page 191. I will move that. That one, a council agrees that a bylaw is the most appropriate way to regulate A, the display of signs in public places and in some cases on private property, and B, nuisance behaviours, trading and events in public places, and 2, direct staff to prepare a standard of proposal to make new bylaws consistent with the findings in attachments 1 and 2. Councillor Olsen is seconding that. Councillors, this is pretty much a straightforward process which is going through with the staff. They have gone through all of the bylaws, they've gone through all the processes to come back with what actually needs to be changed and where the changes can happen. Again, this is a standard process that they go through. This is not anything new. And it's come to that time of the year where we need to actually review those bylaws and get the bylaw processes through, as many of our strategy and democracy team should understand. I'm going to go to Councillor Mackenzie first.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just a question, and thank you for the work on this. Just wanted to check, in the view of staff, is there anything in here that could be contentious? Because I just want to make sure that we're getting a balanced view at this point before going out with a statement of proposal and consultation. Thank you.
Good question. We should ask the team. Is there anything controversial? I don't believe there is, but however, I will get the team to...
Through the chair, I don't believe there's anything contentious in this report itself. Potentially in the development of new bylaws, that is where some contention could arise.
Thank you.
Councillor Harding.
Thank you, Te Kora Matua. Just a couple of two things. And I can kind of feel Councillor Hulse somewhere in the room around that that shared responsibility with NZTA. So, and recently I've seen in a local advocate around, kind of the wanting the signs to direct tourism towards Hihihawa, Huntavasa, but there's a place for NZTA, obviously if it's along the state highway. But it said in that document that it was the council that was holding up this process.
That is a different matter.
Is that a different matter?
That's a different matter, and that was actually a requirement that was done. So that's something we can probably take offline. That's not to do with the policies that we're going through.
It's not to do with the bylaws?
No, it's not. It was NZTA's request to council to follow a certain process because it was their state highway.
Through the chair, I'll just confirm I'm not familiar with this particular instance, but I would say there is a memorandum of understanding with NZTA. We have a split between urban and rural roads. Generally, NZTA will take care of the rural roads, those are 70 kilometres per hour and above, and it's council's responsibility to regulate signs within the state highway corridor on speed limits below that. I don't know what happened in this particular instance. The MOU is quite old as well. It dates back to 2009.
It is, Councillor, it is a process that has been gone through. the team have followed the request of NZTA because it was a state highway. So again, I can talk to you about that one offline. This is more to do with the policies of council's policies in relation to the
Okay.
signs.
Then just in relation to the council's alfresco dining policy needs a refresh, and, you know, I'm all for alfresco dining, no, sorry. I'm all for adopting policy that needs refreshing, but the real important point for me here is the phrase that says, improve the regulatory framework for outdoor dining in Whangarei by simplifying the rules and working with key stakeholders to minimise conflict with other users of public places, rather than putting another layer of compliance on those businesses.
That is correct, yeah. Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Cooper.
Thank you very much. Nothing, I can support the motion, thank you. I would ask that when you review this, team, you look at the recent decision there was to deny Honda sign on the State Highway 1, which came from this council, please, and see if there cannot be a method of working in economic development for our district.
Yeah, Councillor, again, that's not part of this agenda item, and I need to make it very, very clear. Our agenda item is to deal with the policies and bylaws for signage of our district and on our roads that we have access to. Very clearly about that, so please focus on what the agenda item is.
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship, and I appreciate the help and clarification. There is a good diagram in here. I just was looking at it where they all actually overlap on page 216. So there is areas where, even with the Electoral Act, which could be our hoardings, should we decide to put them up. So, yeah, there is a place where it all overlaps. Thank you.
Yep. Councillor Golightly.
Thank you, Your Worship. Must be election year. I've just got a question on rough sleeping, clause 19, 1B. Clarify, it says, vehicle or other structure in a public place for the purposes of living accommodation. However, the bylaw doesn't define what living accommodation is, so it's confused me a little bit. If someone could answer that.
Okay, through the chair, yes, clause 19 has two parts to it. The first part prohibits people from erecting structures in public places, including tents, without council approval. The second part is no person may use such structures or a vehicle in a public place as living accommodation. So the second part is quite unusual for council bylaws. I haven't found any example throughout the country of a similar subclause. The first part certainly gets used, and it seems that the second part there is some support among staff to retain it as well. Living accommodation, I think it could be helpful to, if we're going to retain that clause, just define it, say what it means. Is it X number of nights? Is it just permanency or whatever that may be?
Yeah, I think that would be good. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Connor.
Thank you. Yeah, I'll touch on that one just quickly as well. Just for people who are in that space of rough sleeping, who, whilst we don't want them there, they don't want to be there, and the systems that we have in place, as in a whole society, are not matching the needs of what they are able to be. Giving people the dignity to actually have a shelter over themselves whilst they have nowhere else to go, we need to really make sure that we take it with a grain of salt so that we're not just keeping people wet and out in the middle of nowhere. My original comment that I was going to make around this, and not this, it's about going out to whatever we go out with. I would really love us to see us address the city centre issue where all of our shared path networks need to be able to access through. The fact that in here it says there's 1,111 incidents of breaching the city centre bike ban between 2011 and 2024 shows that there's a need to mitigate it in a different way. The fact is people want to be able to access through, and we need to be able to provide an option so that people can safely get through the centre of the city.
Councillor Peters.
Yes, I'm just reiterating this and put questions, and they're not questions that anyone can answer. Where are these people going if they're not going to be where they are?
Again, focus on what the agenda is.
Well,
it's not, that's not part of this agenda. This agenda is about the bylaws.
Right, but this is one of the bylaws.
So that can come into the next part of the item, which is actually when it goes out for consultation on that process. That's where that gets involved. This is more identifying that a bylaw is the best process to deal with.
That is in current thing. So if it goes out, that is the time where the bylaw could be changed. Thank you, Your Worship.
Yep. Councillor Olsen?
Yes, question, just around the items on page 200 and 201 where it's got the heading and then not applicable. So they will not be, they're not covered, I understand, by our bylaws. So will they be taken out of our bylaws?
Do you see what we're looking at there? Yeah, okay. Do you want to answer that one?
Through the chair, yes, if we're talking about fireworks and drones and graffiti, currently not included in the bylaws, they're addressed through other legislation. Yes, so we wouldn't, or they're not in there currently.
Cool. No other questions, discussions, comments? Councillors, this is a process that we're just going through. As I said, it's just tidying up the bylaws that we've got. The team have done an amazing job to get these tidied up to this point, so it's really this the next step. All those in favour? Any opposed? Carried. Thank you, councillors. We'll now move on to item 7.10, which is on 223, which is the Māori All Blacks Scotland, and I believe Councillor Mackenzie, you had your hand up first for that. Do you want to read that?
Sure. That the council approves the proposal to temporarily close the following roads to ordinary traffic on for the Māori All Blacks versus Scotland and the Black Ferns versus Black Ferns 11 rugby events on the following dates. It is 2:15.
Thank you, Councillor Holmes. And Councillor Mackenzie is reading it as we were going to question him afterwards. But anyway, Councillor Mackenzie.
Cricketer through and through, sorry. Following dates in accordance, you put me off now, with the Transport Vehicular Traffic Road Closure Regulation 1965. Saturday the 5th of July 2025, Okara Drive from the roundabout at Okara Drive and Porowini Ave to the roundabout at Okara Drive and Port Road. Period of closure 9 a.m. to 7 p.m. 2. Approves the proposal to temporarily close the side roads off the roads to be closed for up to 100 metres from the intersections for safety purposes. 3. Delegates to the Chair of Infrastructure Committee and General Manager Infrastructure the power to give public notice of these proposed temporary closures, to consider any objections and to either approve, cancel or amend any or all of the temporary road closures if applicable.
And I'm just checking, because I did see Councillor Reid's hand up, so I'm just double checking, Councillor Reid, are you definitely seconding that? Because I had Councillor Olsen there saying she wanted to second it. So Councillor Reid did have his hand up there to second it. I'm just making sure. Sorry, Councillor Olsen, he was quicker before you. Councillor Mackenzie, you'd like to speak to that?
Just very briefly, Your Worship, to say I'm in support of this. It's obviously just a procedural thing that we have to go through to close the road, but the event itself is going to be a fantastic one and very much looking forward to it. Cheers.
Thank you. And Councillor Connor.
It's not going to come as a surprise that I'm going to bring this one up again. And to ensure that the public are aware that obviously we want to make sure that the areas that we are making sure are kept clear, footpaths, parks and whatnot, is continued to be done so, because the last time when they actually got fined, they're like, what the heck happened here? Because we're not doing our job to actually enforcing what our bylaw states. So we need to ensure that we're not double standard things.
No other comments, no other questions. Right of reply, Councillor Mackenzie? No, right of reply has been had. All those in favour? Any opposed? Carried. Thank you. We'll move on to item 7.11, which is on 231. Councillor Olsen, are you wanting to move this? Okay. Would you like to read it, please? Microphone, please.
Recommendations that the council, 1, approves the temporary closure of the following roads to ordinary traffic for the Northland Car Club Motorsport event series June to July 25 on the following dates in accordance with section 3421B and schedule 10 clause 11 of the Local Government Act 1974. Sunday, the 15th of June 25, Rosyth Road from 400 metres from the intersection of State Highway 1 to 3 kilometres from the intersection of State Highway 1. The period of closure 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Sunday the 6th of July 25, Springfield Road from 7.5 kilometres from the intersection with State Highway 1 to the intersection of Springfield Road and Kukanui Road. Period of closure 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Sunday the 13th of July 25. Oh my goodness, Waiwarara Road from Theodore Drive to Casey Road includes the Casey Road Waiwarara Drive roundabout and Theodore Waiwarara Road Drive roundabout. Roosevelt Road from Theodore Drive to Waiwarara Drive. The period of closure 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. 2. Approves the temporary closure of the side roads off the roads to be closed for up to 100 metres from the intersection for safety purposes. And 3, delegates the chair of infrastructure and committee, delegates the chair of the infrastructure committee and general manager infrastructure the power to give public notice to these proposed temporary closures, to consider any objections and to either approve, counsel or amend any or all of the temporary road closures if applicable.
Thank you, Councillor. And Councillor Reid, you were seconding that from what I saw with the hand again. Councillor Olsen, do you want to speak to this?
Just again, you know, what this will bring to the community is huge. We've already done a couple of events, so this is just another one following on. So yes, I support this.
Okay. Any discussions, any comments, any questions? Councillor Reid?
Just a geographical correction, Waiwarawara.
Thank you, Councillor, for doing that correction. I'm just double checking here. Okay, so Councillor, there is a typo in the item. We just had to make sure that it was correct. Number 3 there, and as the Chair of Infrastructure is seconding this, I need to make sure that the wording is correct. They're both happy with this. Where it says the General Manager of Infrastructure, it actually needs to say the General Manager of Transport and Community Infrastructure. Are you okay with that change? Seconded, you're okay? Yep, okay. Any other discussions, comments, right of reply? No, right of reply has been had. All those in favour? Councillor Reid. Any against? Carried. Thank you, councillors. We'll now move on to item 712, which is on page 243. I will move this, and Councillor Reid, you're seconding this again. The motion is quite simple, is that the council notes the regional deals update. Just write this down. So, councillors, you will see the agenda item. Now, you will also see there was a supplementary document which was sent out, which had a correction on it, and it was a correction that was noted previously that for somehow in our list of documents hadn't been translated through. So we got Northland Inc. to actually correct it straight away, and then they fixed it, but it didn't get altered to our documents. Isn't that right, Tony? Yes, he's saying yes. So the important thing is it was actually a geographical thing. It was pointing to Whangarei and Tutukaka area as being Marsden Point. So that was actually corrected and fixed, and that was the pages were actually completely done. So the document was completely done on that respect. This is going, there is huge positivity around Northland about this. There was talks about the regional deal for many times. Our central government politicians are very keen to proceed with what we can do to this point for Northland. You know, and the 4-laning that has been announced, that's all part of that regional deal. It's all part of making sure that Northland is included and that we're not forgotten about, and that regional deal with just the 4-laning alone will make a huge economic benefit to Northland. There are other aspects of it which are clearly highlighted in there, from future-proofing energy, which I know there's still discussions about that going through at the present moment. There's the expanding of the marine industry as well, which is also what the Regional Council have just gone through, and there's also enhancing of the primary sector and growing the visitor numbers. So there are so many aspects of this document, and what it's taken is it's taken all the councils working together, bringing everything in to all the different projects that will relate to all these things. So the Knowledge Hub was brought in as well as part of it, and there was all of these different aspects, and the feedback that I have received from central government and the bureaucrats of different government departments have actually been very positive about the way this document was presented and the way it was actually came across, and very easy to read. Not only that, but they actually highlighted that we were very inclusive compared to, and they don't like comparing, but they said we were very inclusive, and we'll just leave it at that. So, councillors, it is a good document to pull in hand. It is. You will notice that there were some things that have been removed from it for sensitivity reasons, for economics. However, it has covered many aspects of Northland, and Northland as a whole from an economic driving going forward. Councillor Connop, you have...
Yes, thank you. Just want to first of all say thank you very much for amending that geographical error, whilst I know Nguru and Tutukaka would much be valued with some of this stuff. An accurate map is needed. Just on the comment that you had just made, which I was going to ask about, but it leads more to the question. Page 25 of the new agenda item, which has been given to us, where you said that some items have been blacked out or rescinded for whatever reason. The information in the original document is not blacked out. So is that accurate, or is that just it needs to be modified or whatever because it's still in the original document?
The document that was put through was quite clearly the one that was modified to make sure it did not have any of the information that wasn't supposed to be in there. So the document that should be there, the team are just double checking for me. Tony, are you comfortable with the document?
Page 25 got the blackout, but on the original agenda, which is page 275, the same sheet is still there. Well, they shouldn't put it in.
Oh, okay. So just to clarify, so the information that's gone out is actually the correct information that's gone out. There was information that was on the original agenda, however, none of those agendas are actually out there. They've all got the proper document that should be on there. So the information that was the information that's gone out to the public is the safe information, with removing of all of the specific items. Okay, Councillor Mackenzie.
Just wanted to commend Northland Inc. for their work on this document. It is a really good piece of work, and I think it stands us in very good stead to have a strong application to be one of those ones chosen before the end of the central government term. And I think we should all do everything we can within our power and our connections to get this over the line, because it really is a very incredibly critical piece of work, and a deal like this could be a total game changer for the North. Thank you.
Councillor Olsen.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. Yes, also I would just like to say huge amount of work, well done, anything for economic growth. My question around this is how much input did LGNZ have in this?
LGNZ had no input in this project because this is done by the region, and we could not involve anybody else outside the region. No other questions, comments? Thank you, councillors. All those in favour? Any opposed? Carried. Thank you, councillors. At this present moment, it's just come on 1 o'clock. We will break and we will resume later after the Finance Committee, because we have the Finance Committee at 1:30.
Your Worship, not all of us are on the Finance Committee.
It's a good time to turn up. Nope, because we have to move confidential afterwards. Yeah. So we will, at this point, close the meeting and then resume.
Your Worship,
we'll resume
point
in
of
the
clarification, can't we just finish it? It's only 3 items. Otherwise, we're going to have to come back in 2 hours. I can't do that. I'm away.
Councillor, I appreciate your time and the situation we're in. However, we're also on a time requirement that we have to have a break in 10 minutes' time anyway, because we've been going for 2 hours again.
Let's get through it then.
Councillor, I appreciate your time. Once again, I say we are very limited for time. We have a finance committee which will start at 1:30. So we need to, and we have said for that.
Your Worship, one of them is minutes, then one of them is an update, and then one of them is...
Councillor Mackenzie.
It's only 3 small items, and you're deferring it for hours. I don't understand.
Point of order, Your Worship.
Councillor Reid.
Item 1.3 is not a small item.
Thank you, Councillor Reid. I've already made the ruling, Councillor, and Councillor Mackenzie, you please abide by my ruling, which I'm asking. Again, we are going to adjourn the meeting and resume after the Finance Committee.